Dutch and look at a Dutch angle?
I don't know what a Dutch angle is.
Oh, well. Fuck, I don't know, man.
Crash
Watch more
and burn. That
movies.
was it. All right. Are we gonna
All right,
take this right now?
we should have already done this at this point.
He's rolling.
Are we rolling?
Probably. Yeah, that was strong. Never mind. Jesus
Woo!
Christ.
Wow, I haven't had tequila since last time.
I don't drink tequila
Oh,
anymore,
no.
except for when I'm doing a podcast now with you. It's like a tradition.
I lied. I did have a tequila shot in December.
That's actually really sweet.
So what's with the whole not drinking thing? Are you doing that too?
Is
it
Fuck
just
no.
you? Yeah,
Man,
you're
I'm
not.
drinking Crown
I'm too
Royal.
smart
What
for
do you-
that.
Yeah.
I took a 30-day break, like did a nice reset and everything. Energy actually was up, definitely. It was nice. I don't know. Just, didn't drink at all for 30 days.
It's not a bad way to spend your time.
No, I still went to the bar, but I had a Diet Coke with a straw, and I was like, I'll take my Diet Coke, and they're like, you're just running with that, and I'm like, yep.
Vaping's fine, right?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good. That is such a weird.
It smells.
That's just like an e-cig or what?
It's just
It's an Elf bar for one, and then
that's
You
the
both
I guess
have them.
it's a-
That's so funny.
or
guys are
matching.
matching.
You
I
know.
don't, yeah, I got them online because you can't really buy them in California anymore.
Oh, those aren't the jewel things, are they?
It's kind of like that. I mean, it's the same
It's close enough,
concept. Like there's
honestly.
nicotine and
Do
whatever
you
in
want
there.
to try it?
It's just
Dude,
nicotine or what?
There is nicotine
there's
in
just
there.
nicotine.
I don't know if you want to put nicotine in your
PCP.
system. Do you really want to taint your system?
My
with
body's a
nicotine?
temple. I don't put anything toxic in there.
I can
There
see
you
it.
go. Yeah,
I don't even drink alcohol. There's just water in my cup.
You're a fucking liar.
just faked out really hard.
I'm just saying.
It just looked like it was alcohol. Just,
Yeah.
yeah, like that right there. That's
It's
water.
just water in a
vodka.
clear
So is that a
glass
no to
bottle.
trying it? I'm trying to be.
Is it? I don't understand. What is it? Is it like a cigarette or what?
Oh, wait, do you really not understand what a vape is? Like
I understand what a marijuana vape is. I don't understand what that kind of
thing
vape
with
is.
nicotine.
it's like the same, but
So
it's
it's
usually
just
lighter.
nicotine in
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's like
And PCP.
All right, let me try it.
Yeah, boy.
here PCP, and you're like, I'm so down.
We're gonna eat some faces.
Mm-mm. You don't hold those in though. The same.
No,
That's awkward.
you definitely do it.
You definitely not.
What
like,
flavor
it's-
is that?
Sour apple.
That is so weird. I
Right.
don't think
It's-
I'm like a vape cigarette guy. I do cigars. That's like my MO.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cigars. Antique pipe. Like, get yourself a good antique pipe with cherry wood. I think that was the one that I have that's made
Yeah.
out of it. They taste amazing.
Do you actually smoke out of that?
With the- oh, they had the
I don't know
pipe
what
But
But
else-
with
with
Like with
Tobacco?
tobacco. Yeah,
Yeah.
you get like loose tobacco
loose
and
tobacco
everything.
leaves.
that's old school.
That
It's I can see why they did it, man. It's really
Yeah.
entertaining getting to sit there and like clean it. Like it's a lot to work with, but it's engaging. You feel engaged when you're cleaning and smoking your tobacco pipe. It's kind of pretentious too, but
It's
you
the
know.
old school style. There's something romantic about that. I've thought about buying a typewriter, not because I write or anything, just to say that I have one.
Just
Like, this is my typewriter.
you wouldn't actually use it on a regular basis.
I would use it, but I don't write anything anymore. Like, I'm not in school, so what would I use it for? Just
Like, write your-
write my
a
memoirs.
manifesto. Yeah, sure. A manifesto.
Could do a
memoir, same
manifesto.
thing. Yeah.
You can just hire someone to sit in the corner and like use the typewriter to type out everything you're saying
doesn't
for
need a
every podcast.
stenographer.
So it's just like, it's on paper too.
Just have somebody follow me around, document my life with a typewriter.
Definitely.
That'd be good.
That's a hard sell.
Did you already just do that?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
it feels like the world's ending. So if we can't have a drink tonight, when can we have a drink? Right?
Why do you think the world's ending? I mean,
There's
aside
just a
from
lot.
the
Have you guys heard about the? We're just going right in. Have you guys heard about the Silicon Valley Bank that collapsed?
Yeah, actually, I was reading about it this morning today. I didn't read too much about it, but
$210 billion down
gone,
the drain,
gone,
just gone.
gone.
That's impressive.
Here's hoping for that housing crash.
Is that why everyone was freaking out yesterday about we got to pull our money out of the banks?
Yeah, you typically want to do that when banks crash.
Yeah.
I think that's what caused it to collapse in the first place. Wasn't it a bank run? And then
Like I said, I didn't read too
It's-
much about it. I just saw like a headline of it, but I haven't had the chance because we had to go watch Scream 6. I don't, fuck whatever one. But I did read about it. Obviously, it's a real bad sign ahead, and goddamn, it's gonna be some rough times ahead, man. What did you read up on it at all, or?
I just started to take a cursory glance at it because it came across my Twitter feed. Oh, let me check this out. So I started diving into it. I read about the $210 billion. It seems like they liquidated some assets or something just to have cash around, and then people were afraid that they didn't have enough cash in stores, so that caused a bank run. I don't know. I'm definitely fucking that up, but
I can see that
just
being
getting
accurate.
dicey.
Oh, definitely.
It's more or less what I overheard yesterday. It was just like everyone doing bank runs and fucking shit up. And then, of course, lots of jokes like, oh, I should go pull out my money now. And I'm like, and somebody else going, please don't. We bank at the same place. Don't fuck with it. don't fuck with like Wells Fargo and shit. Like, please. It was just.
All right, so Nick, what's your the collapse of society plan?
Like if shit hits
Yeah,
the fan,
yeah.
like really hits the fan.
Yeah, do you get a bug out bag?
I got a studio.
You
You just hunker down here for 36 hours until I slowly start to starve. But
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think there's much food here.
there's not. There's
No, but
alcohol though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
you
good
can-
way
alcohol.
It's a good way to
You can
pass time.
last at least a week without food.
I could
so-
ride out the collapse in style and just be wasted for the whole thing.
There you go. There
Like,
you
yep,
go.
Only
this
way
is
to
how
do
we're
it.
going out.
There's enough like calories and alcohol and any like already like you'll
Beer.
maybe be okay. I
Yeah.
don't know. Like make sure you get the soda in there. Like get the sugars up.
Cannibalism. Would you resort to
Oh, God.
cannibalism?
Have you guys been watching The Last of Us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
good is that show?
It's
Oh.
the first couple episodes were good. And then it just kind of trails off. There's a lot missing in terms of like, a different medium, but film, versus or film versus like, a video game. You can interact with the world in a video game. You have more environmental storytelling, and I mean you can do that in TV as well, but that isn't. They're just mainly focusing on like the story point narratives.
Can you pull that? You want to be right up on that sucker.
Should I
Yeah.
deep throat it?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to do that now?
Yeah, and I'm gonna make eye contact with you too.
Oh Christ. It's not a bad show, although I do understand that it did deviate a bit from the game.
But you have to do
But-
that, right? To create a good story
Oh, definitely
for that
Yeah,
format,
yeah.
for a movie
Yeah, you're
format.
you're swapping everything, so like that's totally fine, and I don't think it's bad, honestly. Definitely fucked up cannibalism. Oh my god. Yeah, we're just gonna not bury your dad real quick.
What was that
Oh my god.
family that died in that mountain pass and they were
the-
eating each other?
Donner party?
Was it I think it was the Donner Party.
Yeah.
It
mean-
it would happen so fast where people would go down that route. If shit hit the fan, it would happen so fast.
You think so?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like in most of those like
No,
apocalyptic like
no
shows and
faith in your
movies-
fellow man.
Yeah. Well, they always have people that are like raiders that if you don't have a use when they come upon you, you're usually killed, and half the time eaten. So like that happens in like most apocalyptic like shows, movies, etc. Like that's a thing. Like books and games, like they're probably gonna kill you, and what happens afterwards is half the time they're gonna eat you as well.
I don't think it's a faith thing. I think it's recognizing human nature.
Yeah.
I think when shit hits the fan, people get really weird really fast. And then it just devolves into chaos.
They're just
I-
trying to survive.
Honestly, man, I'm surprised. Up here a couple years ago when the blackouts were happening and all that, it was surprisingly calm. I mean, I thought it might devolve a bit, but it's that we got through that pretty all right. I think.
Yeah, but we're talking about a couple hours. Yeah, you lose your power overnight.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fair.
it's back on the next day. If the power went out for a week, shit would go wild.
No,
And we
People
had
will
over a
lose.
Yeah.
day, but
well,
yeah,
a couple years ago we had those blackouts back when
it
the
wasn't for,
Paradise
like,
Fire.
though. It wasn't as long as like a week, but there were like
Wasn't it?
over.
I
There
don't
was
know.
over 24 hours at one point with like a lot of places with still no power, and that also happened like with the earthquake as well. But the power outages were definitely worse because we had more people die at that time frame because they weren't equipped to like run their medical equipment without power, obviously, for long periods of time. I think this time like they had a lot more people had like backup generators and whatnot in advance. So it was a lot better. We're also a smaller community, so it's not shocking that people are like more willing to help each other.
Well, yeah, if you took LA,
Put them to the same
Instant
it's
situation.
cannibalism.
it's
Instant
anytime.
cannibalism.
Same situation definitely would not go great.
I'd give us a week if we lost power and it wasn't back on within a week. I think that would be the time frame when people would get a little nutty. Probably before then, if you were in a big city, be like 3 or 4 days,
Yeah.
and then we'll start looting some shit.
Yeah, fair enough.
What's the worst case scenario in an apocalyptic setting? Do you think you would have like the hardest time with? Like, do you think you could like shoot your friend, or like, do you think you could eat somebody
I wouldn't eat somebody. I wouldn't go that far.
that you know
Because then it's like,
of?
why just stick around? Why not just cash out?
Just die at that point.
Yeah. Like if it comes down to you, especially if you're with your family or your friends, it's like, okay, we need to eat somebody
You
or
don't have
we
like
all
a
die.
designated person in your family picked out for like, hey, we're gonna eat them.
Oh
Do
my
you?
god.
Yeah.
Who would it be?
It's part probably her.
Damn.
I don't even. My
Switched up
body's not
that
a
fast. We're not
temple,
even,
like-
the power hasn't even been out yet. And he's already like, Angel,
It's probably because I already said, like, if there's like a zombie apocalypse, I am going to shoot myself. Like, we're not going there. Like, I'm good. I don't want to survive. I don't want to find out. That was, yeah.
I don't know if I could eat somebody. I don't, even if
I
they
could.
died, like say they killed themselves and
What
they
if-
were just lying around.
What's that movie where they crash into the Andes and they got to eat each other and to survive? I'm like, go a couple days without food, man, and you'll start thinking differently about like eating someone. I think for most people, like that's and that's like the whole, I guess, the way post-apocalyptic like literature and film and stuff like that. Like it's meant to show obviously it's meant to show like the decline of like people and having to make hard choices, like, you know, eating the love of your life, allegedly.
Damn.
Allegedly. Noted.
You
gotta-
can't tell me I don't love you if because I'm willing to eat you, man. I think
He's eating you out of love.
Yeah,
He doesn't want to just
yeah.
let you turn into a
be the
zombie or
first person I'd
decay.
eat. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's love, man.
They should put that on a Valentine's Day card.
Yeah.
You would be the first person I would eat. Shit hit the
Absolutely.
fan.
I mean, it's fine. He agreed to shoot me, so like, I think that's even. You know, if you kill me,
I'll
you
deal
get to,
with you.
You would just off
yeah.
yourself right off the bat if you knew like it was end times.
I've been debating it. I don't know. Like, I'm slowly like pulling back from that. But like a few years ago, you could not, like, I wouldn't question it. Like, if it was zombies, I fucking hate zombies. Those are the most of my nightmares are like zombies trying to eat me alive, right?
What if it's not zombies? What if it's just a financial collapse and
That's
are
different. I
attacking
can
each
fuck
other.
with that. I can fuck with an apocalypse. I can't.
So, like,
fuck
Mad
with
Max, you're good.
zombies. Yeah, I'm like,
It's
I
just
mean,
the
I
zombie
could probably
thing.
kill somebody else. Like I could definitely do that. That's fine. I might even be able to torture somebody else. Like those things, I could pass that line in like a worst case scenario situation. Absolutely, I could get there. A bunch of like mindless creatures you obviously can't like talk down, like coming at you, like trying to kill you, just like rabid as fuck, and they're just gonna tear you apart while you're still alive. I think I'm good, and like you're never safe to sleep or anything. So this fucking that's a little much. I don't know. And then you're always like constantly worrying about like being one of them, becoming one of them, and then you're the one killing everybody that you love. I don't know.
I
don't like
think that's like an interesting
You're-
aspect of the. Sorry.
You're good. You can pull that sucker back.
I know.
So if you want
I
to sit
know, I
back, you
know.
can move it
Sorry, sorry.
around.
All right. Hello.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I think it would also really like in terms of like just society collapsing. Honestly, I think people do just society as a whole would probably do a lot better than like most people give credit for, especially nowadays, man. I think if anything, you know, not that I want it to happen, but I think it'd be a good reminder of like, hey, we're still all at the mercy of nature, and I think people, especially nowadays, really forget that is that, in terms of like preparedness, it's huge advocate for camping and stuff like that to really get a reminder. It's like, oh yeah, okay, so if I, go camping for a week, man, and see how it just like even, you can take all the equipment you want and everything, minus an RV, but like just camping in a tent for like a week out in the woods is, you get a quick reminder, like, oh man, yeah, no, I could die at any time. Like
So you think people would come together?
yeah, man. I mean, we've been doing this for since the dawn of man. So
I
like,
would buy that if COVID hadn't happened and I didn't see how that played out. I think people would.
but that wasn't a collapse, though, man. That was.
But doesn't that say something that something as minor as COVID would, not to diminish it, but as COVID caused that much chaos and is still causing chaos, we're still dealing with that.
It kind of depends on like what you're dealing with. So like even we had like the earthquake, natural disaster, not virus, and like because you're not afraid of like man, right? Like when you're in a situation where it's like an earthquake just knocked everything out, like San Andreas Fault just fucking gave or something. Like we had our earthquake and all that. All of our neighbors, not like all of them, but like a lot of the neighbors were going around checking in on each other, like making sure everyone had like enough supplies and like because the power was out and they were dealing with stuff like a lot more when you're not afraid of your neighbor because they're not, carrying a deadly disease potentially. It's just, hey, we had another different negative thing happen. People come together a bit easier. And same thing with like that power outage. Like we just had a lot more people like, hey, do you have everything you need? Do you need it back? Like, do you need to charge anything? Like, are you good? Like, you have enough gas? Whereas COVID, that's kind of like the zombie thing. Like, you might have a virus that could kill me. Go fuck yourself. Like, you don't want to be around people at all. Everyone was isolating, being shitty. Like, fend for yourself because if you band it together, someone probably is sick and you just get screwed.
Don't look at me like that. Don't look.
I
Don't
thought you were
look
gonna
at
say
me with
something.
that chiseled
I
jaw.
think it depends on the extent of the collapse. If we're
Yeah.
talking pretty serious recession, yeah, I think people might rally together a little bit more. But if it's full on
Everything.
collapse, I don't think so. Like if
Yeah.
grocery stores run out of food and people realize, oh, this is gonna be,
Oh yeah,
we have to
definitely.
fend for ourselves, I think they would
Yeah.
flip that switch pretty quickly.
You wouldn't trust anybody.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
especially if
it'd
you
be
have a
back to that
family in
same
it,
thing.
you have to feed your family.
Or you
and
could
they
eat
would
them.
too. Or you could eat them. That's one way to bring down the need for food, I guess.
Yeah, you need less food when you kill your family.
I'm
to eat
telling you,
them.
man. Have a bug out bag. Have some seeds. Get some goats. Get a plot of land, guns, ammunition, and then just everybody just draw straws and to see who's the designated like person we eat.
Oh my god. Where's your bug out bag? Where is like 90% of the things you just listed? Like,
Some of it's in my trunk. Some of it's
oh my god.
Going full on prepper.
no.
That
This is
used to be a
news.
bad thing. People would say, "Oh, you're a prepper," and now everyone's like, "Yeah, I've got some food stored. I can make it a couple days."
That's the I think the like it's honestly kind of ironic to me, man. Like that aspect that like people would get ridiculed for that, and of course there's aspects of it like like the whole show Doomsday Preppers where you have these people have forts and stuff like that, and it's just like yeah, it's a bit it seems a bit excessive when everything's working and all that, but guarantee you where's the first place everyone's gonna go and hey, if you know this guy in the community, hey, you've been prepping for you, and like it's I think it's just again funny how it's social comfort, man, honestly, that like allows the room for the ridicule of people like that. Everybody's comfortable, so of course it seems crazy. The so like what is it, Noah's Ark, man.
We're getting biblical.
Yeah.
Well, comfort is the silent killer, right? There's that quote, and I can't remember how it goes, but it's that if things are miserable but they're just comfortable enough, you won't ever change. It either has to be more miserable or more comfortable, and then maybe you'll do something. Or not more comfortable, it just has to be more miserable, and then you'll do something. But it's just miserable enough where you don't want to change your habits, and you just live your life in that state.
You're just gonna accept it. Don't want to make it worse on accident.
Well, and then there's the frog in boiling water,
Exactly.
aspect. Is just like, okay, well, how bad can things get?
That's how I feel about Ukraine. I feel like we are the frog in the boiling water, and people just keep turning up the temperature. And it's like, yeah, let's just see how high we can go.
Or it's like, yes, it's nice.
I think a
Doesn't get
huge
bad.
aspect of that is people's just desensitization to just the reality of it, man. Like everybody's so disconnected um from that like aspect of like, oh, nuclear annihilation, or just dying, or anything like that. Again, go camping or something like that, and you're reminded real quickly, like, oh yeah, this can be pretty bad. And people, again, social comforts really kind of just ease people into this false sense of security. And what's that saying? I can't remember it right now, but ultimately, I think comfort, man, is definitely killing us, and it's slowly killing us in regards to our ability to react properly to situations that we should probably take more seriously. And you see that a lot in regard, just with modern culture, man. Like everything is just a press of a button away. Everything, it's just it's easier, and we're not. In a lot of ways we are better for it, and in a lot of other ways we're not. I mean, I think I was reading a post and some article about like like, has the internet made us better off, and in regards to be human connectivity, and being able to reach somebody across the world. There's aspects you see more, you hear more, you're constantly reacting to things. And I think there's an aspect of burnout to that, man. 24-hour news cycle. There's a I think there's burnout with that. You hear every day what an entire town decimated with that Ohio
Oh,
train.
Norfolk Southern.
Yeah,
That is such a crazy story.
Eastern
Yeah.
Palestine, yeah, East Palestine. But, and that should be a big goddamn deal, and it's not. The riots in Israel right now because Netanyahu is trying to rein in more control. There's a bunch of protests happening there. Like there's stuff like that happening everywhere around the world at all time, and before you didn't really hear about it, so you didn't have like this scope. But being constantly exposed to kind of all of this like horrible tragedies, people become desensitized. American gun violence, oh, it's only the 80th 30th shooting. Take your pick of what number we're at now this year. I don't even know at this point, but it's desensitization for sure. I think that in terms of like just with Ukraine and everything, like what Afghanistan was a big thing for 20 years, and people just stopped caring.
Well, that's the big question. Is life more chaotic today, or are we just more aware of everything that's going on?
Probably a bit of awareness, man. Like it's genuinely overstimulating to even try to cue into all of it constantly. 'Cause it's all just there all the time. Which is why I have more and more people just not watching the news and not bothering with half of it because it's the same.
Do you want to pull that
shit.
down just a little bit? You can
It's
bring it
the
down
same
so you don't have
shit
to sit super far out.
constantly.
Everybody always struggles. The mic, sitting in front of a mic is a weird sensation that I've kind of taken for granted because I've been doing this a lot now.
It's
Where
way
it's
too
just
close
people
to my
like
face.
look at it and they're like, what do I do with this
I
thing?
just keep staring at it. It's right there. It's so close.
I have gotten better about not always touching the mic
I was
since
gonna comment on
you've
that. You've
last been on.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah, you've been touching it less.
I'm very proud of that.
I've seen you touch it, maybe 4 times.
Well, I've
so
been trying to touch it to kind of like cue to you guys to move it so I don't have to keep saying it, but nobody was
No.
picking
As
up
long as I can
on
hear
that.
myself, I'm like, no, I can hear myself. Like, it's fine. Like, it has to be okay. It's good enough.
That's why I like wearing the headphones, is because you can kind of check yourself a little bit. Go, am I moving too far away? Where's the volume on this?
At the tip of my nose, it looks like.
You can bring that down. You can move it around if it's more comfortable for you. Guys,
See, I
do
didn't
not be
want to
intimidated by the
do
mic stand.
adjustments. I don't
Oh.
know. I was just like, I was
You
just
didn't
gonna
want to touch it at
exist.
all.
No. I'm like, fuck this mic.
I'm gonna break it.
Yeah, because then you have the opposite side that's over there. That's wants to break it. I was like, I'm just
I
wanting
never
to
said that.
Michael's the more chaotic energy.
Me?
Over here
super
planning who to
chaotic energy.
eat.
Like, oh, I'm over here like remembering when we were kids. Like, I don't know what schools did this, but I know our school did that like whole situation where you had to like your parents had to pack like a bunch of like more or less junk food and shit that's gonna last, 24 hours, right? Just in case there was an earthquake and you were stuck at the school, and like to make sure you had food and whatnot. It was like a disaster day thing. And then at the end of the year, you got to eat it. And, like that was like especially a thing like in elementary school, and like you're always like reminded to have like your prepped box at home for earthquakes and stuff like that had water and all that fun stuff. This whole conversation just had me thinking about that like on a circle, and I was like, man, that was
I
great. I
completely
love that
forgot
junk
about
food.
that.
I don't even remember having to do that.
No?
No,
Oh,
not at
that
all.
was such a thing, especially like, well, yeah, up here because we had like so many earthquakes and whatnot. So like, just in case like the power went out and whatnot, every single kid had a like large Ziploc bag, one of those gallon ones of snacks to be able to ingest just in case. And every year, obviously nothing would ever happen. So every year at the very end of the year, you'd get your Ziploc bag, like huge thing of like snackage, and I always had Pop-Tarts. Like, just there was always, like, s'mores Pop-Tarts in there, and I was like, "This is fucking fire." People, like, trade snacks and stuff. But that was mostly elementary school.
Wow, maybe my school just didn't care about the kids. I don't remember doing that at all. About having it like an end of the year snack bash or anything, or bringing snacks to store. And no, that's not ringing any bells.
That's kinda sad. I mean, like, for some reason, they stopped it, but that was kind of a cool thing. I don't know. I dug it. Well, and they also like, they used the opportunity to teach you about preparedness in case there was an earthquake. So, like, how much water would you need per person, per day, etc., and all that kind of fun stuff, and like batteries and things like that. But they only made us bring non-perishable food items.
Did you have that?
I did.
What the? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just drawing a blank. Maybe we did do that, and I blocked
Most
it out
kids
from
remember it
memory.
as
Maybe
like a
their
snack
plan was
day.
to eat you.
I was the one. I was
There's
singled out.
one
They're like,
kid
this
every
kid.
year. They're like, you know what? Like, if it goes to day 2, we got Nick. Like, it's fine. That
I'd
would
be
be
okay with that. I would rather be eaten than be the one to eat somebody. But knock me out
Yeah.
or like take out me first. Just I want to be alive, and then you guys are rolling me over a smoke pit or something. Just slow roasting.
Just dying and like just screaming a little bit like the entire time through. I feel like that would
All right.
really ruin someone's appetite.
If you were going to be
honestly.
eaten, how would you want to be prepared?
Oh god.
I'm asking the deep questions, man. This
I
is
don't think I've ever
important.
really thought about. There are very few subjects where I've literally given no thought to, and I think this is one of those ones. How would I want to be eaten?
Yeah. How do you want to be prepared? What kind of dish?
I wouldn't care.
What?
As long as I'm dead
Are you?
before they
Come
started
on.
eating me. I really wouldn't care.
You don't enjoy cooking?
Do you really want him to think about like cooking
Yeah, why
human
not?
flesh like that in depth?
Is this something you give a lot of thought to?
No. I just say things.
It's chaos energy,
It is,
obviously.
It is. Geez, nobody else has thought about this, really? All right. I think I'd like to be a nice either like stew or curry, but it is also my favorite food. So
So if this is an apocalyptic setting, I would want to hope if you are getting eaten, why would they take the time, the effort, and have the resources to make a nice stew or curry? Like that's my rebuttal. Is like if I want to sit here and think about like what would I pair well with? Well, Angel, you drink alcohol a couple times a week, so that's probably in there. Like meat might be tenderized already. Who knows? I'm like, oh, there might be a smoky flavor from vaping. Like at the end of the
Tastes
day,
like
man,
green
does it
apple.
really matter? Because it's an
Yeah, are you
apocalyptic
kidding me,
setting. They're just
man?
gonna cook
Do you know
you.
how much better, like how much more? All right, here's a thought. Okay, do you want to just be served as like a meat cube or like a sloppy Joe versus like this nice Michelin 5-star, or is it 4 stars? I don't know how many stars they have, or like this nice gourmet dinner. I'd like to be a gourmet dinner, personally.
Here's the reality. Everybody, if we're in that situation, everybody's just getting cooked over a fire. That's how everybody's getting eaten.
Yeah, everybody who
Nobody's-
doesn't care, and everybody who
Yeah.
doesn't have self-respect as a cannibal, maybe.
Are you just gonna like have Johnny's seasoning salt like in your pocket Not for anything
I am
else, but
gonna.
just for your
I have
death.
an entire
Like,
Costco crate full of that.
That's in his bug out bag. Just seasonings.
just
How
like
would I
when
cook
I
people?
die, don't forget all of these, please. And like a whole bunch of like lentils and whatnot, and like just ready to go. Just like you can have like a nice lentil Michael stew. I guess.
I think it tastes gamey, honestly. But I'm also, well soaked in alcohol as well. So I don't know. I might have like a nice brandy. I think I'd like to be served in a nice brandy. Like if I'm gonna be made into a steak, just cooked in like some brandy or sherry. I don't know.
I don't think they need to cook you in
Like
brandy
Hannibal
with how
Lecter,
much
man. He was
brandy
a
you
classy
drink.
cannibal. Like he'd go all out. Like you gotta have some self respect, even if it's the end of the world.
Did you know that alcohol can cause cancer?
Everything causes
Yes.
cancer.
I'm gonna say that as I pour myself another drink. I legitimately did not know that until a couple weeks ago. Legitimately no idea.
Do
How?
you not like read
It just
the
never came
warnings?
across. No, I definitely don't read the warnings. 100% not.
Like you can't even drink a rock star without. I think there's like somebody who got like someone sued for like ovarian cancer because like there wasn't warnings yet on that situation. Like
Isn't that
energy
how-
drinks like caused a whole.
Nick, did you know that alcohol can cause fetal
Terrible things.
alcohol syndrome?
Oh my god.
This is a topic you guys talk about a lot.
No, that was just a really stupid
Oh.
sentence.
It's true.
Did you know that alcohol can cause fetal alcohol syndrome? Like, it's in the name of. Anyway, sorry. I was just
Warning
like,
from your Surgeon General: do not drink while pregnant.
There's a lot of shit you shouldn't do while pregnant.
There's a
And
lot of
people
things
do it.
people shouldn't do.
People still do
period.
it. That's the crazy part.
I've met way too many people that still smoked, like cigarettes and whatnot. A lot of people, not a lot, but a couple people that still drank.
How
and
much
it's
do you think that
crazy.
messes with somebody, like on a tangible level? If you could have a birth and then somehow birth the same child in a way that you didn't consume any of those substances, how different do you think they'd be? Like if you're drinking alcohol or if you're shooting up a little heroin
Oh my god.
versus a kid that's just coming out clean.
I feel like it really just messes. I mean, like, think about how it fucks with your body. So, like, if it's you just existing, you with no alcohol is one way. Now you have something inside of you that is, I would assume, much more sensitive, much less, like, able to deal and handle those things as much as, like, you're able to. So, if you're over here, like, I can have half a glass of wine, not feel it whatsoever, like, maybe baby would be okay, right? But if you're just sitting there,
Wrong.
like, getting fucking hammered to the 9 and, like, just everything, I can't imagine that you're not really doing something to that kid. I don't even know all of the issues that really arise from that, but I don't know. Everyone that I've met where their parents have done excessive any of those things, they end up with, like, weight issues, they end up with, like, cognitive issues, development, like literally in their developing body issues where they're just like they're not built the same, that's for sure. You just end up with a lot of issues there in just every department, depending on what they've done. And I don't know. I feel like it does a lot.
How do you control for that though? Because you can't tell people not to have kids, which is where all of the extremists
Sure
go.
you
When you start
can.
going down that argument, they're like,
Like just
maybe certain people shouldn't have kids. And then, well, who gets to decide that? And then we're in this weird spot where everyone's just being birthed in a lab.
Well, and
there's not really a way to control that, honestly.
You can't.
You
You
can't
can't do anything
control
about
it.
it.
Like if you want to like keep free will and everything moving on, like you can't control that.
If someone wants to have 14 kids, they gotta have 14 kids. You gotta let them.
Yeah, like you can just sit there and counsel them and talk to them and do everything that you can to try and get them to like be a less shitty human being the next round. Uh, but at the end of the day, it's just it is what it is, which is absolute shit. And hopefully they, realize what they're doing is wrong. Because I've also met plenty of people that went, "Oh shit, I'm pregnant," and they like completely 180 their life, and they're like, "I'm not gonna fuck this kid up," and they were like amazing. And sometimes it just takes people way too long for that, sadly.
That's the best case scenario. Is if they're on
That
that
is.
path, they find out they're pregnant, and then it turns their life around.
Yeah, and they become like they swap over. And like they're these amazing people, and they have great healthy children, and they do a really good job. There's also like the effects of just heavily drinking and like doing those things anyway, even though you're not doing them when pregnant. That can still fuck up, especially like they can still fuck with your eggs and shit a bit. Concept.
Well, just your life.
Yeah. I mean, your life in general, but if you're gonna have a kid after that, like you have to remember, like, oh yeah, I've been drinking poison for however many years, however frequently, and however much. It still also has an effect. So, or injecting poison, or snorting poison, or smoking poison. How else can you do drugs these days?
Could go up your butt.
Enemas.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
I think you left that one out.
It's probably because I've never done that.
It's probably not a bad thing.
Yeah, like I don't know
I
if I
don't
want
think
to
you
do an
need to try that
enema.
one.
Just like, hey, buddy, help me out real quick. I just need to like get this fix.
That
What?
shows how
Yeah.
much medicine changes. That they used to just do enemas for everything. Oh, you're not feeling that well? Let's shove this hose up your backside.
Well, it's either
Flush it
that
all
or
out.
bloodletting. So
Bloodletting's another
Yeah.
one.
Let's get some
Leeches.
leeches. Fuck
I would
yeah.
rather have the leeches than
Than
the
the
enema.
enema?
Dude, I'm already anemic. Like,
Hands
give me some
down.
fucking leeches. Like, we're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna be feeling it. I'll be like, yeah, doc, I feel fucking fantastic.
Now, anemia, iron deficiency in your blood?
Yes.
Like,
Iron. You also have like B12 and like there's a couple other things that go with that. There's like different types, technically. But typically just low iron. Yeah. That's how most people view it.
how do you combat that? Just take iron pills?
Or eat iron rich foods. Like especially with like orange juice or something on the side. Like if you take like vitamin C and you're eating like meat, like red meats and like, broccoli and well, not really broccoli, but like spinach and whatnot, like a bunch of those things. Like eat your greens, drink some orange juice with it, and you can fix it. What a concept.
Fix your diet, fix your life.
Yeah. It seems like a struggle, but genuinely, diet change worked a lot better. And I don't think I've been anemic in like 7 years now. But diet change worked way better than taking pills every single day. And the pills hurt your stomach. So like no one enjoys that. Like most women just go, yeah, I'd just rather be low iron than deal with that. So
I wonder how many people are fucked up from the food that they're eating and just that's their normal baseline.
We
And they don't
have
even
the
realize it's a problem.
highest obesity rate in the world, I believe.
Well, that's a tangible one, but what if you're that skinny fat where you're just going through your life and you feel like shit, but this is your baseline?
It's
And so this is
it's
how every
the
day feels.
same like regardless of it's the same issue, man. There's sugar and everything. All the food we eat is processed. Like it's a parallel to us having one of the highest obesity rates in the world. Is our diet is shitty, and a cornerstone of life is the food that you eat. It really does affect your quality of life. So
a lot of people think they're being healthy because they're sitting there eating like those diet bars and like those protein bars and like, oh, it has like low carbs and low calories. It's just all the protein you need for the day. This is fucking fantastic. I've lost so much weight. And they're sitting there fatigued as fuck. Or they're eating like a shit fuck of like bread and everything, which is very fatiguing for a lot of people because again, we weren't really made to process that much wheat and gluten. Same as like the beer.
I think it's a huge aspect into uh, one of the many reasons why I think in general like our probably like our depression rate and anxiety rate and all these people showing up with like mental health issues and stuff like that on
I'm
top.
gonna pull that just a little bit closer.
Yes.
No.
Is generally the diet of the average American man. It's terrible. And I'm not guilty. I am guilty of that as well, but it's it's uh it's really interesting, man, cuz like I mean whole, what is it? Organic stuff is stupidly expensive, eating well is really difficult. Most EBT stuff like that you can get is all really shitty processed foods, or like it's what they're gonna go for because it's what's easily accessible and most plentiful. So of course, that's why poverty has when it's a aspect of poverty. If you're impoverished, you're gonna have a much, much, much more terrible time with health as a whole, because it's just you're working a shit ton, or you don't have access to good food. You don't have the time to cook good food. Like, you don't have the time, money, or the energy to really like put to put that effort into having better meals and exercising and so on and so forth. Like, and honestly, it's probably part of the reason why we have such a shitty stand. What I
Well, there
think.
is that, but there's also just convenience. I mean, you can really boil it down to that as well, because some people just don't want to take the time to go grocery shopping to buy all that food. They don't want to meal prep. There is definitely a barrier of entry with money, and we should try to bring everybody up to that level so that they can afford healthy food. But some of it is people just eat shit food because it's the most accessible. You can go to Taco Bell, you can go to In-N-Out, you can just go to
Dude,
these fast food places and pick out.
Kraft mac and cheese. Come on. Just go to Costco, buy a huge box of Kraft mac and cheese. You're set for like eons.
Exactly. Whereas
No
other food
worries.
Is
expires
that how
and you
you
have
want
to
to be
eat it.
eaten? Just Kraft mac and cheese and
Yes, lay me on
angel
a
bacon.
bed of Kraft mac and cheese. Like, put some hamburger helper on the side. Like, really show me that you've like gone out of your way to go shopping that week for all of the necessities of hamburger helper, Kraft mac and
Shopping
cheese.
while the world has collapsed.
Yeah.
You're right. I don't need to wait for society to collapse. I can just cannibalize you now. I should.
This feels
I feel
like a
like
red
we're
flag.
running on a theme here. Yeah.
Like, can we
And
just
it's
like
going back to you being eaten, Angel. That seems to be the recurring concept here.
this doesn't seem like the proper way to eat a woman, but all right. It's fine. We'll go to cannibalism. I might need help later.
Are you guys still living together? Yeah.
Yeah. We're a block away. This
From
was like
here?
yeah, we
Oh,
like
no
a heavy
shit.
debate. He was like, well, I mean, how far is it? Like, I'm like, well, I can literally like drive to like the Chevron real quick, drive back, and then it'll still take me like less than 2 seconds to go over there. It's like, we have plenty of time. Like, it's cool. Like, I'm gonna grab an energy drink. Like, I haven't had any caffeine today. 'Cause it's literally, we're on the other side of the block.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Did you guys just move there? You weren't living there before, were you?
No, like end of October.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was able to like we got the keys and like on like the 20th, and then I was able to throw a mini birthday party on the 31st. And I was like, let's go. So it worked out. Or not the 31st, but whatever that weekend was. Over lied. I think it was like a couple days before or something. But yeah, like less than 10 days, just moved everything in. It was like, let's have a little party. Let's go. It's a birthday party time. Got a place.
Yahoo. And so is it just the two of you in this place?
No, we have a sister too. Of
Okay.
course. And of course a dog. Come on.
Oh, yeah, I think we talked about your dog last
Can't
time.
forget the
Dude,
dog.
the dog is the best part. The dog's the best. Well, she has a yard now, and it's like all fenced off and everything. It's like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a yard that allowed my dog and a shed. 10 out of 10. It's hard to get a fucking yard, okay?
It's hard to get a place now.
Yeah, it's hard to get a place in general, but like a place that like accepts a dog that's
Hard to
not
exist.
like, well, just accepted the dog. Period. Honestly, yeah, that shit's hard.
Hot damn.
I was shook when they called me and they're like, "So did you actually want this place?" I was like, "Wait, what? You're calling me and checking in? The fuck? Like, what'd I do?"
So what's going on in life? I think this is the first time since we went to the shanty that I've talked to you both.
Yes.
The both of us, yes.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
What is
That was
going on
eons
in
ago.
life? It's a hard question.
Not much. Work.
A wage slave, yeah, work.
Pathfinder campaign.
Yeah, indeed.
What is the Pathfinder campaign?
Kind of like D&D.
Oh yeah, we dug into D&D last time. You schooled me on that.
Dude. So now I'm going to learn Pathfinder, and I'm actually going to be joining a campaign, and that's It's pretty fucking exciting. It starts tomorrow.
And this is a board game like D&D is?
Kind of. I
Would
mean,
you
they're
call it
not
a
like a
board game?
board game. It's like
Tabletop.
tabletop.
shit.
Like you're live. Like you're role playing as a human right then and there. I mean, not as a human, but like you're role playing right then and there at your table or wherever the fuck you're sitting, doing this thing. So
Have you guys tried VR out at all? Like the Meta Quest or the HTC Vive or anything?
that costs money. Okay, like
Tabletop is a lot cheaper.
like we gotta think here. Like dice are very cheap. Okay, get some dice, easy peasy. That's less than $20. A VR set? How the fuck much?
It's a couple
do those
$100.
run?
It's like $400 or $500, I think.
I think I don't. No.
For a
haven't done
cheap
that.
one. I think they have some models that are like $1,300. I think
Dude.
Meta has one that's like the Quest Pro is like $1,299 maybe. Or something outrageous like
Just
that.
a new laptop or some shit at that point. Like, do you really need a VR headset? That is a lot of holy shit.
I talked to my dad about VR a lot, and we're kind of on differing ends in a sense. I think that when that gets cheap enough, people are going to go wholesale, and that's going to be more realistic than the real world. People are going to want to spend all their time online in that.
Dude,
space.
that was the fear, man. When that like showed up, I was like, oh god, like, are we just gonna turn into like?
Ready
are we
Player
even
One.
gonna, like,
That's where we're
yeah,
going.
I'm like, are we gonna know who the fuck we actually are? Are we gonna even have real lives anymore? Like, are you just gonna like go into a VR world and like work a job there and like that's your life moving forward? Like, are you not even gonna be human at that point? I don't know. I can't. It's cool if you're like dead to be plugged into something else. If you're able to put your subconscious into a different type of world after you've died.
And just live forever.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool and like have the option to like opt out at some point. That wouldn't be terrible in my mind. But while you're physically alive and well, fuck that. Like you're physically alive and well. Like why aren't you doing everything you can to have a good life on the physical plane? But a lot of people aren't these days. They're just trying to escape in whatever way they can.
Here's a question for you, Nick. If you could pick to live in a virtual reality where you're essentially God, would you take it versus living in the real world?
Do I know?
No, would you?
No, but would I know that it's a fake world?
Yeah, you're God.
That's so like dissatisfying though.
Knowing that it's fake, right?
Yeah, like it's fake.
If you didn't know if you could be knocked out and then put into that, and this is just
I think just happened to
you
keep
live.
happening that you wanted to have happen, that would be kind of cool. Like if it was happenstance, you're just like, weird, I just really wanted that position. I just got it. Like, oh, I really wanted blank, and it was awarded to me. Like you had no idea. That'd be much better. Much more like, although then it'd be like, why the fuck am I getting all the, I'd be too skeptical. I don't know.
What would be the only thing that you know? This is just your life now. Everything just goes right. You've got these powers.
Touche.
I don't know. I think I would choose the real world. But I mean, you don't really know until you're in that position, right? And the question is, how much better would it be? Like if it was really Ready Player One and you go
It's
to these other
entirely up
worlds.
to you. It is your world. You make the rules. You have free
I would
reign.
pick real life.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How
Because I'm
come?
basic like that.
Because you're basic like that?
You don't want that much control. Oh, it depends on too, like how much thought do you have to put into it? Like, do you have to make the wind like blow and to feel the breeze from like the ocean or
Well,
something?
and what's the point?
Like,
What's the point of doing anything in that world if it's all fake? Like, why do anything?
yeah, it's just like disgenuine. The same reason people don't like having disgenuine conversations and don't like those kinds of experiences because at the end of the day, it's very shallow and empty.
Well, it's like a dream, and dreams are great, but we get to come back from them, and that's why they're great. Like if you had to live your life in a dream, what's the
I
point of
can't even
anything?
punch somebody in a dream. Fuck that shit. Like, have you ever tried punching somebody in a dream? Do you ever make like the connection? Does it ever work?
I've never tried to punch somebody in my dreams.
I've definitely
I feel like you have some violent dreams.
only once or twice. Like it was a moment where someone was being very disrespectful or they were trying to kill me. Those are like the two options. But regardless, whether I was defending someone's honor or they were trying to kill me, I did try to punch somebody. It didn't fucking work. Like, it doesn't even like you don't make a connection. Like your hand like mushes through, and you're like, "What the fuck? This obviously isn't real." Like I can't. I'm like I can't even fucking punch somebody. Like, are you kidding me? Like this is doing nothing. I'm like I'm not that weak. I'm very
I
weak, but
had
I'm
a
not that weak.
I had a dream last night that I was back in college. This is gonna sound so
Rip.
weird. I was back in college and I went up to this girl after class and like asked her for a number and she's like, "Yeah, no." I was like, so I'm getting curved in my dreams, right? I don't know what that says about me. I was like, oh, okay, and just started to walk away. And she's like, actually, you know what? Yeah, here you go. I just don't want to waste my time. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I took her number and then I woke up and that was my dream.
Your dream was going. You
Those
can't
are the
hit
kind
on
of
women
dreams.
until you're actually ready to commit, bro.
Maybe that's subconsciously trying to tell me something. It's like, yeah, you can't. It's about committed relationships. How sad is that shit?
Your dream's just calling you out, like,
My dream's like
"Hey,
checking me, like, hey,
don't be a
come on, dummy,
fuckboy."
what are you doing? Yeah.
Like, get
I'm
good.
getting life lessons from my dreams. Yeah. Yeah. Do you buy into that? Did dreams tell you something? And it's your kind of your
Yeah,
subconscious
no,
speaking to you?
absolutely. That's what they're
It's
there
awful.
for. You know, a dreamscape is essentially a it's a way for you to act out, or not act out, but it's a way for you to kind of just come to terms with a lot of the internal issues that you're struggling with, your feelings about that's about how what you're dealing with and all that. If you don't deal with it in real life, it's gonna come back, and you're gonna have to have that conversation with yourself at some point in time. You can't really spend your entire life running from something, man. And I think one way or another, you're gonna have to have that conversation with you, whether you want it or not. And I think dreams are probably where it's gonna happen, if it's the place that's gonna happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah, you're a little more open to ideas, I guess, when you're in that state.
I don't think you're necessarily open. I think you're just your guards down.
You don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're just along for the
Unless you learn
ride.
to lucid dream.
Well, even in lucid dreaming, like, you still have to, like, deal with other things, like, depending on how good you are at lucid dreaming, because you can just lucid dream enough to, like, get yourself out of almost dying and, like, semi-change the situation, but the rest of it will still be controlled by your subconscious. There's people who can lucid dream and literally build the entire world, but that seems extraordinarily fatiguing, and I've never accomplished that in the slightest. Like, if I start fucking with too much shit, I'm waking up.
Have you
It's like
ever
you
had a
are way
lucid
too
dream?
conscious.
I don't think so. I don't think so. None are coming to mind.
You ever have, like, a moment where you're like, "Oh shit, I'm dreaming. Like this isn't real." In the dream,
I
and then
don't
like kind
think
of change
so.
what you're doing.
Yeah, no. I read a story when I was younger about a guy because you can control that to some extent, I guess, where you can practice and then
Mhm.
get into this state where you always lucid dream. And this dude managed to fuck up his life somehow by going down that because all he wanted to do was sleep. So he was sleeping 12 hours a day just to build this fake dream life where he could be happy and was living. And then it got super serious where his real life
Oh.
was fucked and he
Well,
was missing school and
that
blowing
goes
off
it goes
work and doing
back
all this
to
crazy
our
stuff.
a conversation about you know would you rather live in reality or virtual reality where you're God, and
Or not even God, but just happy. Like, how many people are miserable in life and would trade that just to be slightly more happy,
A fair amount.
right?
Have you
yeah,
looked at our
honestly.
depression ratings lately? Like it's pretty high.
I think a lot of that is tied to food too, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think a
like
lot of food makes people
Food
depressed.
boggles you
economy.
down.
Lack of exercise.
Oh yeah.
It's hilarious,
Lack
like
of
when you actually exercise.
opportunity.
That's gonna get worse if we go into a recession.
I mean,
People are
we're
gonna get
already, for the
fucked.
most part, headed in that direction, man. The housing market, wages, wage stagnation.
We've
Uh,
literally been dealing with inflation for a hot ass minute
yeah.
already.
What do you guys make of Joe Biden? Do you think a lot about him?
I
You
don't
think
think
about
about him at
do
all.
you think about what he would taste like?
Probably like Ben Gay.
Ooh.
Oh god.
Do you guys think about that a lot, like our political landscape?
All
Or
the
do you guys just
time.
try to focus on life
Oh
and
no.
getting through day to day?
So I'm the
I
day-to-day one.
You're the day to day
I
one.
I mean I love history, man, and so I pay attention to politics. And locally, in terms of in terms of U.S. politics, I try to pay attention to like other countries' politics because it does affect our the way our political system works. If there's a massive uprising, or again with the COVID shutting down our manufacturing because we do it all in China and the world crawls to a halt. It's a it affects us. The people really do. I feel like especially now, and maybe it's not just now. Of course, I'm growing up in the time that I'm growing up in, but I think the lack of kind of just willingness to pay attention to what happens and just around the world, it still affects us, whether you think it does or doesn't, and or whether or not you pay attention to it.
Willingness to pay attention. What do you mean by that? That most people aren't
It's eas-
focusing on what needs to be focused on?
I think people are just so willing to tune out now. There's so much information and there's just so many distractions readily available that it's just really easy to tune out. It's really easy to just kind of shirk that responsibility of keeping in touch of what's going on around you. It's easy to dissociate nowadays more than ever.
Just
Well,
go
there's
on
two.
TikTok.
There's what?
Just go on TikTok instead
Are
of
you on
like
TikTok?
Yeah, go on
no.
TikTok and
But
go on TikTok
Facebook
instead
has
of
reels, okay? Like you can do
it's
it
the
in other
same
ways.
thing. Social
I think we
media.
talked shit about TikTok last time you were on. I have a TikTok now for the podcast. For the
Oh,
podcast,
yeah,
if that
Allegedly.
makes a difference. For the
okay.
podcast,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know. I actually have never scrolled on it. I just go on, post, and then go off.
What do you
Don't scroll.
specifically look at?
On TikTok,
Yeah.
I don't look at anything.
He just
I
said he
don't.
doesn't
I
scroll.
just post and then hop off because I'm terrified of it.
You
How
should
come?
be. It's a time sink. That is how you distract yourself from everything else. Facebook Reels will do that for me, but it's still on TikTok at least.
I think you'd be
Kinda.
lost with TikTok. From what I've heard, once you start scrolling, it's just a black hole.
I've
I
been
know so many people that are addicted to TikTok.
I have to like give myself like, okay, right now I am allowed to scroll, like I'm allowed to click on the fucking like Facebook Reels. Like I will literally actively ignore them and like do anything else. And then there's like moments where I'm like, okay, now you can look at stupid videos for a little bit. Well, and then sometimes they have like really good like mental health ones and whatnot, which I'm super into. Worked in mental health for a few years. Like there's some things on there that are like, okay, this isn't terrible. Like a therapist is on here breaking down, different disorders and shit. Like that's kind of fun. Like that's not bad. The other ones though, they're definitely mind numbing. And then there's like the cute dog ones, of course, which are also like mind numbing.
I do feel like a lot of like the TikTok reels in regards to like mental health and all that though. I really do feel well, and it's interesting that it's like such a big focal point in regards to like a lot of the content that is made or just, and of course a lot of it is garbage in terms of just like, hey, I'm going to make this funny video or anything like that, but there especially with our generation, it's really interesting to see the focus on like mental health and how quickly people are to self-diagnose with a lot of like mental disorders and stuff like that when a lot of it can really like people are really quick to label themselves rather than just kind of really sit with them rather than just sit with themselves and kind of address the issues that they probably should address and on top of the labels you also have the just willingness to kind of distract yourself like you know a lot of people will like, oh, I'm ADHD, oh, I have some form of autism, oh, I'm depressed, oh, I'm bipolar, oh, and people are so quick to kind of just chalk it up to all these different diagnoses, and rather than just, they're quick to define themselves with diagnoses, and rather than kind of just actually address it. Like people are content with, like, yeah, I'm just bipolar, yeah, I'm just autistic.
The biggest problem to that is they're not like actually addressing anything. 'Cause it's
No,
one thing
no.
to be like, oh fuck, I have a lot of these traits and like I may actually have this as like an issue. But most of the time it's one of those like, oh yeah, I'm this and deal with it. Like not, oh, I think I have this, let me figure out how to deal with this and combat it. Like two totally different things. But recently there has been like a huge spike in people being like, I totally have ADHD or I totally have autism or and just instead of being like, yeah, I'm just kind of a little like socially off, or like maybe you just are, slightly socially inept, or you just had too many awkward situations. And that's what you think is up. I don't know. People definitely just go down that rabbit hole and just don't deal with anything a lot.
They self-diagnose,
Lots of
and
self
it's a
diagnosis.
problem.
Yeah, like
Well,
well, you
there's
shouldn't
Or
that.
they're
self
peer
diagnose.
reviewed by their
Oh
peers.
God. Yeah, there's another term like peer reviewed. So it's like instead of self diagnosing, like you might go to
Oh,
self diagnose or you don't, whatever. But then your friends either, they're going to confirm your self diagnosis. Like, well, yeah, I totally have this thing too. Whether they're actually diagnosed by a doctor or not, doesn't matter. They could be self diagnosed themselves. And then you just have like a group of people going, well, of course you have this. I have this too. And that's like the peer reviewed like version. It's like people who have accepted that they have it, whether they've been actually diagnosed or self diagnosed, confirming, oh, yeah, you totally have this also, which is kind of one of those things where it's like a lot of things really overlap. Like if you're actually going to delve into like mental health, a lot of symptoms overlap like crazy for a lot of different diagnoses. Like you can't be 100%. And at the end of the day, like what matters most is like actually just addressing like what are your real problems, like your symptoms for these things, like what do you actually need to work on and working on them and treating it like that. And
Well, the biggest thing with that is you can combat depression specifically more effectively with exercise than you can with medication or seeing a therapist. And that is usually the last option people jump to of those three.
yeah,
It's
I
always,
mean,
oh, let me get some meds. Let me go see a
yeah, your
therapist.
doctor tells you to do it and you ignore them and you might do it later.
That's
They
if you
always
have a
recommend it.
doctor that recommends exercise first. I've talked to a lot of doctors and their jump is, yeah, let's get you some medication. I know so many fucking people on ADHD meds. It is ridiculous.
I was on ADHD meds.
Were you on them because you had ADHD?
Yeah, that's how you
Oh,
get. You don't get
I know a lot of
ADHD
people
meds.
that
Allegedly.
that
Are
probably
they
don't have
are they
ADHD,
not
and they're
prescribed
just.
them?
I think in some cases they are prescribed, and in
Okay,
some
because
cases
if
they're
like
just.
severe depression or something, I mean, because it does increase like dopamine levels. But exercise honestly works a lot better. And I don't know, my personal experiences with doctors, like ever since I was a kid, they've always recommended like even if they literally say it like it's a tiny like little blip of like don't forget to exercise, like they always throw it out there because they're supposed to. And even if they don't throw it out there, they're going to rely on your documentation and say they did throw it out there because they need to cover their ass. But most of them that I've ever met do actually like put in there like exercise, please, to try. And that's the same thing like even for anxiety, ADHD, and yeah, depression. Like so the major ones people usually deal with. And then honestly, I think most disorders. So I'm even trying to think of like even like borderline personality disorder, big issue with that is like the inability to, of course, like control your emotions because they're just severely heightened for those patients. So those, I would again something that would regulate that would be exercise. That would also assist. I'm trying to think of something that wouldn't be beneficial for, and I don't think I can because it helps at least on some level because a lot of the time people are missing happy chemical in brain or they're missing, regulation in their brain like within themselves. They're just all over the place and they're just you c- you can't just live at a cubicle, you can't just sit all day. You can't just not function and like hardly move and eat junk food and expect to feel good.
It's almost like we weren't designed to do that.
No, you're supposed to be walking around a lot more and you're supposed to do like physical labor. Crazy concept. And run, running's actually not a terrible thing. Although if you smoke, your lungs will feel like they're on fire.
How did you guys start smoking? How did that come about? Because I've been watching you. You're over there just puffing away like a train on that thing.
Yeah, I
Is it
know.
like a compulsion, or are you just deliberately deciding, okay, I want to? Because I don't understand. I've never really gone down that route.
Well, I think the first time I smoked anything, like smoked a cigarette whatsoever, I was literally like in elementary school.
No
I
shit.
might have been like 5th grade. Like my friend was like, "Yeah, let's do this thing," and I was like, "Okay, you're cool," and I was like, "Sure, I'll take a drag off a cigarette." And then obviously I didn't like smoke after that for a very long time because I ended up dropping that friend. But high school, it came back because of a guy. And, he smoked also American Spirits. I think he smoked like light blues or some shit. Or maybe no, they were teals. Doesn't really matter. The guy smoked cigarettes, and yeah, we were hanging out. And so I also smoked cigarettes because we were hanging out. And then I had anxiety, and he like left his cigarettes with me. And like one of the things about nicotine and anxiety is like you start using it to calm down. And part of it's just honestly the breathing aspect of it, but is why some people will get like vapes that are literally just like they don't have nicotine, they don't have anything in them. They're just like a flavor or they're just water or whatever. Cause it does it helps like remind you to take like a, proper breath and all that fun stuff. And breathe slowly. But yeah, that kind of just started. And then I don't know. I've stopped so many times. I don't know. I've stopped smoking plenty of fucking times, like cigarettes. But
What makes you go back? It's just that feeling.
fuck, dude,
Chasing that feeling.
something major hits the fucking fan. Like that is how you go back to smoking cigarettes. Most people do not go back to smoking cigarettes because they're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. No, you remember that it's a bad thing. You always remember that it's a bad thing. But in the end of at the end, like someone dies or like you're about to be in financial ruin or your boyfriend cheats on you, like something major is going to happen. And then that's why most people go back to having like smoking a cigarette. And you're like, just this one pack, just this one cigarette. Or alternatively, you can be more like Michael and do it for only social reasons when you're drinking. Supposedly, that was when we first met. But let's be real, he just ended up smoking regularly after that. So,
That's true.
facts. That might have been my fault, though. I don't know.
Smoking more consistently.
Yeah. I was working at a mental health facility, man. The anxiety was real.
It's an interesting coping mechanism, right? It's like people drinking alcohol when they get off from work. Get home, they have the beer. Everything's gonna be okay.
It's terrible. Well, and they feed each other. So if you're using like cigarettes with anxiety,
Doesn't it make it worse?
it makes it worse. It literally is the opposite of what you're trying to do. Like if you're anxious and you smoke a cigarette, like it'll calm you down for them, but then your body is going to crave the nicotine again, and then you're going to get anxious again because you want the nicotine. So it's literally like one of the worst things you can do. And it is one of like the most addictive things like out there. Unless you want to fuck with heroin, we can just go to that route instead.
That's up there.
Yeah. I think
Heroin's up
that
there.
that one might. I've never tried that. I wouldn't want to for many reasons. One of them being I still fuck around with nicotine products, so I don't know if I'd be able to quit heroin. That'd be a terrible idea. Also, injecting something into myself, like I know I work in the medical field, but that just seems like a really bad idea.
Do you think addiction translates? Like if you could be addicted to cigarettes, you could be addicted to anything? Or do you think it's situational?
Addictive personalities, dude.
Addictive personalities.
Yeah. Like so, well, and some people it's like only this one thing they're addicted to for sure. But like most of the time, people have more addictive personalities. So they're also the people like you might see go back to drinking like energy drinks. I also stopped drinking energy drinks for like that whole month. Like I drank just tea, like green, like Earl Grey and green tea, like mixture that I made myself. Right. That was it for like that entire month. So the same people that may smoke cigarettes or something else more, they also could be addicted to caffeine or alcohol a bit more easily. So it's like habit things where if you form a habit with it, it can be bad, which is why a lot of times you see people who are like recovering addicts, they're like super like into working out and things like that. And they're like, they do that like very regularly. It's part of like, they've just traded one habit for another habit. At least this other habit is a healthy habit. And so like trade-off happens kind of for the same reason. They're habit people.
It's interesting. I it okay, so walk me through this your month cleanse. Was that just you just wanted to see how it felt, or you just wanted to have a reason not to use, or what was the thinking behind that? You just wanted to take a month, just like catch a breath.
Yeah, I mean at that point like I had gotten to a point where I was like drinking a lot more regularly than I wanted to. Like yeah, there was, like a moment just like I'd obviously just drank too much on empty stomach and I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, at this point I have lots of reasons to not drink for a bit. Um because at that point I'd been drinking like at least a drink a day. Like you don't even think about it. Like yeah, like oh I had a long day at work. And like not even like you're not even going out every day, but like maybe you have like ciders in your house or whatever. And like you have less than half a cider a day, but you're still having alcohol every single day, even if it's like a little bit of alcohol. And that's like a weird thing to realize that, just because you're keeping the ciders in your house, and even if you're not finishing a full cider, not even drinking half of it, like you're still consuming it every day. And that's like shitty, like no one should even drink a little bit every day. Like at that point, you're still considered like an alcoholic half the time if you're having like a little bit of alcohol every day, even if it's less than like a can, because you're not, that still equates to like 4 plus, beverages in a week. When you're like a woman, I think 7 is like super bad and so on. But anyway, doesn't really matter. Point is, yeah, decided not to drink, went on like that whole like time frame for it. And it, was genuinely nice because there is like more energy that you get from it. Like you're not fatigued. Your brain's never in like a foggy state whatsoever. Like, you're a sharp thinker. Like right now, I'm not my sharpest thinker because we had some tequila. So like that's not present. And you're kind of just, you're with it, and like you're not, it's, it's nice because you don't have that like, and I don't know, alcohol is just a weird thing. So it just, I was like, I'm gonna do it for 30 days. That was the point. I was like, I'm gonna do it for 30 days. And then I just held on for that 30 days. And I even gave like a little bit extra. And then I tried drinking like hard alcohol right off the bat. And I was like, oh, this was a mistake. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot fucking stronger than I thought. It was like less than a drink. And I'm like, wow. I don't know. I don't think I answered your question properly, but point is, for whatever the reason exactly may be, Nick, I did stop drinking for a month and chose to stop doing that. And it is a very healthy thing for people to do. And then it was really funny because after I did that, there was this whole like dry January thing coming out. So a lot of people just assumed I was on that kick. So that was kind of nice. Mine started in December, but before the trend.
Alcohol is an interesting thing because you never feel great the next day, and yet we all go back to it. Like you're guaranteed to feel shitty if you do this thing, but in the moment you're gonna feel pretty good. And everybody takes that bet. We trade long-term well-being for this very short, very fleeting moment of
Of like
less.
decent. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not
you're
even
just
fantastic though.
yeah,
Like
you're just less inhibited. You're more willing to take a chance to do things, to be more open, and then you're gonna
it's
eat
kind
shit
of
the next
dumb.
24
I mean, have
hours.
you ever just like gone? I'm sure it's pretty boring for a lot of people like go to the bar and like not drink. Don't get me wrong, I get that.
That would suck. That would be a shitty thing to do. You're just gonna go
I
sit in the
disagree.
corner. Really?
No, like I
Oh,
sat there at a table with everybody that was drinking, and like everyone was like, they were all buzzing in the nine. I was completely sober, and I was just chilling, and like the energy of the environment was genuinely enough for me to have a good time without, and like for me to like lower like any anxiety, like because I do, I can't be a socially inept human being. Like I was able to just sit there and chat it up and be totally fine without alcohol, and that was pleasant. Like I was good. I was set. Just the energy of the environment with everybody chatting and like having that kind of experience. They're drinking to like, be able to socialize more. I'm sitting there not drinking, and it worked out the same. Like it was, but better for me even because then I wasn't, stumbling over words or being a dumbass and just chatting with everybody else. And so like I'm not a super big advocate for alcohol at this point. Aside from mimosas, I want a grapefruit mimosa most weekends, but that's just because it tastes good. That's like a hangover within like an hour or two, though. So that's a shitty one.
I get super
Yeah.
tired if I drink. If I have like a mimosa or any
You get
champagne.
like I
Period,
need
I
like
get
a
super
nap.
tired. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get like a little bit of a headache, and so like, it's not that's like a really not worth it thing, but it tastes so good. They
It's a
should make
short-lived afternoon.
yeah
Let's go get mimosas, and then
it's
everybody's
like
taking a nap at 3:30.
genuinely they should find a way to make that non-alcoholic. I'd fuck it up. What? Like a non-alcoholic mimosa, like on a Sunday, like just chilling, just like, oh yeah, like I'm living my best life. Infuse it with cannabis if you want. Fuck, like I don't care. Like just go for it. Honestly, people who smoke weed on a daily basis, like would you consider them to be addicted to weed at that point?
Yeah, I mean daily. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like if you're on a daily consumption, like if you are habitually doing anything on a daily basis, weed, caffeine, cigarettes, alcohol, are you not then just addicted?
But we only attribute that to things we perceive as bad, right? Because if you go to the gym every day, nobody's gonna say you're
Bro,
addicted
you're
to the
addicted to
gym.
the gym.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
come on.
Alright.
Like, like that, just because it's positive doesn't mean you can't use the same terminology. It just doesn't fit as well, which is not the same. I mean, it's
Yeah,
still
what's the difference
sentence.
between an addiction and a habit?
I don't see that there is one, like, aside from addiction as a negative connotation.
I think
Oh,
addiction.
and an inability to live without it. Sorry.
But what
Well,
does that mean? You could be addicted to your family. You don't want to live without them.
That's called codependence.
Oh, true. That's a whole other realm.
But you're not wrong.
What were you gonna say, Michael?
I think the difference between addiction and a habit is usually a positive routine that you have, rather, where an addiction usually it brings there's negative aspects to it. If you can have a habit of I guess going to the gym every day, but there is a such thing as excess. If you're going to the gym every day to the point where you're probably uh you know you're neglecting your all your other responsibilities, that I would classify that as an addiction, or
Like,
you
go
know
to the gyms where you don't even go to work anymore.
You start neglecting your kids because you're always at the gym.
yeah,
You're just like,
Pumping
fuck
for
it.
those
weights. Yeah.
gains, man, for those gains.
Did you pick up Tibby? Who the
No,
fuck's Tibby?
Yeah. Picking up this 225 right here.
and I think what would classify specifically what that difference is, that an addiction usually has a negative impact on your quality of life or those around you.
That's the big thing, right? Quality of life and its impact on that. Because if you're living the life that you want and you don't feel like anything's being obstructed by your current habit, is there a problem? Like, okay, not to put you on the spot, but that thing fascinates me. Do you feel addicted to that, or do you feel like this is just like having a drink? Like, this is just something that I like to do?
He's just nervous ticking like crazy.
Is that what it is? It's
There's
like
a
a nervous
camera.
tick thing?
Yeah, this
Oh,
is a
okay.
nervous tick moment.
I
Like,
could sense
I-
there were
I
a little
mean,
bit of nerves. I didn't know it was attributed to the.
Yeah, I mean, to be
Oh,
honest,
yeah.
I'd rather be fucking smoking a cigarette right now than vaping.
Do you get a noticeable difference between
there's
the cigarette
a
and that?
huge difference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like if you are in a spot of severe anxiety or like frustration, anger, whatever, like if your emotion is heightened in a negative manner and you're trying to use nicotine to calm that down, a fucking vape, unless you, I don't even know if it would work via like one of those like really fancy like rigs, but most of the time a vape is not gonna hit the same as like a cigarette, because cigarettes have just that much more like fuck your lungs, fuck your body
Is it
vibes.
psychosomatic, or is it really the makeup of the cigarette versus the makeup of the vape?
It's part like how it drags, like the intake, and in part as well, just like how much nicotine and everything there is. Just I'm not sure if somebody had like if they sat there and they vaped, like with those. Have you ever seen like those like rigs,
This
like those
serious,
like huge like
yeah, it looks like a
it has, like,
battery
a huge
pack.
battery pack, and it's got a huge thing. Like I feel like those cranked all the way up, because then you get like the big nicotine rush. Like that might kind of get similar at that point to a cigarette, but it's also still like a lighter, I don't know, like it's a lighter drag. Like, I mean, I'm sure you've tried one of those too. Like those are very like, it's just a bunch of like smoke in your mouth. It's It's hard to describe taking a drag of a cigarette. I don't know. It's, it's not a good thing, kids. It's terrible. Don't ever do it.
I've never had a cigarette,
Good.
and that was my. I think that's my first time trying a vape thing.
That wasn't
Do you
me.
want to try a cigarette?
No, I
Don't.
don't. I don't really have any desire to do
no, you do.
cigarettes.
No.
Yeah.
You don't want to give big
They don't
tobacco
smell
your
good. They
your
taste
soul, man. Come
bad.
on.
That's the crazy thing. They kind of smell like shit.
Yeah, but you get, again, psycho thing. Like, you just end up getting used to the scent. Although, like, I still personally hate when I realize, like, a jacket smells like it a little bit or something. I'm like, oh, fuck, like, that's gross. And you have to, like, go wash it. Or, like, somebody walks in and just reeks of cigarettes. You're just like, you can still smell it and it's still a negative. But fuck, man, I don't know.
How much of that feeling when you take the drag is actually from the cigarette versus that's just the thing that you've latched onto? Like, you know how people will click
Oh, dude,
pens or use fidget spinners? Could you
Nick,
swap it out or it wouldn't be
head rush. So, like, there is a
head
chunk
rush?
that is like psychosomatic, which is why you're able to swap over to like different things like vapes, chewing gum, and so on and so forth. Like, you can find other oral fixations to like switch away from. But with that being said, like nicotine in tobacco does genuinely give you like, there is a feeling and it goes through your body. So if you haven't smoked in a while and you smoking for the first time, you take a drag, you can literally feel the nicotine, which kind of feels gross if you haven't done it in a while, or if you like smoke way too much. Like, you can sit there and smoke way too many cigarettes in a row, and you can feel it in your body. Um, it does have like a literal effect, like on your like whole nervous system, man. Like, it really does. We can Google it right now, but it's just, yeah, it's mildly disturbing to think about how much those things just control people.
People are so interesting in that regard as to what they pick to be their crutch, in a sense, what they
Yeah.
choose to be dependent upon.
Well, it's usually somebody, introduced it to them some way, somehow. Like, commercials did nothing like commercials. I was like, you're right, that thing's disgusting, so on and so forth. But like, people in my life, that's a whole nother situation, obviously.
The DARE program really changed my life, as you can tell.
That's where it all started.
Yeah.
Like, this
You're
is
like-
this is for
like-
me. The
like,
DARE program, I
yeah.
think this fits.
Like, I'm super down to say no to drugs. Turns around 2 minutes later. Damn, a joint? Are you serious? Sure.
I wonder how many people actually got turned on to drugs through the DARE program. They're
Yes.
like, I don't do drugs, but you know what? I'm going to.
Like, these guys seem really cool.
Yeah, free drugs? They're just
You
passing those
kidding me?
around?
Like, I didn't know it was an option. Like, I had to pay for them. Like, fuck. Well, I don't think it worked as well in Humboldt County because I feel like all the kids that I knew took it as like, okay, so you say no to everything that's not weed. Noted. Because they're like, dude, we're fucking like, well, they grew up weed up here. Like that. I mean, a lot of people's parents grew weed and sold weed and everything. So I feel like up here it was like, yeah, crack's bad for sure, for sure. I'll
Weed's
never
okay.
drink.
Not meth.
Oh yeah, meth too, obviously. Like meth, like all those things are bad. Like meth's bad, crack's bad, like all this other shit's bad. But then they're like, weed, like alcohol is terrible. I'll never drink. I remember saying that. Like I said I would never drink when I was like 11 and I'd smoked some fucking weed. I was like, yeah, I would never drink. That's terrible. But marijuana though, weed though, that's chill. Like it's not a bad thing. It was sold as like, no, this is like Mother Nature's like gift here. This is like the proper medicine, so you should be doing.
Do you feel like you have any like addictions or anything like that?
I don't think so. I'm pretty good about just stopping. Like if I feel like, well, I've actually never really felt
Just
like I
saying
hit
no.
the part where it crosses that threshold where it's like an everyday. I mean, in college I drank a lot, but it's kind of what college is about. So
Yeah.
it's like, is that really an addiction or are you just in college?
Environment really does affect a lot, man.
What if
Yeah, I
you
don't think
never left
so.
college, man? Like you would just be drinking college cheer.
It probably, I don't know if it would have lasted though. I mean, you're like 8 years in and you're just still drinking that same amount. That's a lot of alcohol.
People are like that. Like that actually happens.
What's the most you've ever drank in one sitting, man?
I at this frat induction thing, I don't want to say this. They had like a
Wait, you're in a
boot.
cult?
Yeah, I was for a little while. Still finding my legs. They had like this glass, I think it was a glass boot, like a cowboy boot thing that was huge. And so they
Yeehaw.
filled that up with beer and I think shots of maybe Everclear or whiskey or something. And we had to chug it. And so
I think you should get another like a glass boot, man. I think they
it'd
should
probably
become a
be
new
pretty good
staple
for the
of your show.
studio
Yeah,
if I had it
oh,
like
man.
right here. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
just in
here's
the
boot.
middle.
That's
Sure.
probably the drunkest I've ever been because we did that and then we had like this induction into your family thing. And so after that, we went outside and they had like little, like those little glass pints that you can buy or plastic pints you can buy
Oh.
and you have to chug it and it's like whiskey or something. So then we
Gross.
chugged that. And I was feeling pretty sideways after that experience.
I would have just been blacked out.
I don't think I've ever been blacked out. I've had those moments where it's fuzzy and you go in and out, so you might lose
That's
30
blacking out.
minutes. Yeah.
Oh no,
I thought blacking out was the whole. You lose the
No,
whole
no, you
night.
have
you
have
can come back.
instances.
Yeah. Like I've come. I think have I come back from a blackout? I think I've come back from a blackout. I think it's more. I think it's considered like a brownout at that point.
That's what I've heard. Brown.
Yeah.
They've got like
Like, where it's like-
grayed
if it
It's
goes,
out.
gotta
like,
be
back-
brown.
It's like with when the power goes out. Don't make it weird. Fuck you. But yeah, so there's like definitely had those. Definitely fucking black. Oh my god, I have blacked out. I feel like men, it's way easier for them to drink way too much. Like you can sit there and like men put it away so much better than women do. Even when I was like larger, I could drink way more than I can now, but holy shit. In kids, man, when you're young and drinking, you're a fucking idiot. You just
That
wanna
shit is so bad for you. I
Dude,
had.
we used to sit there and chug shit. Like your brain's still
You're
developing.
an idiot as a kid, regardless. You don't need
I
to drink.
know, but then then you get your hands on fucking alcohol, and then you're like, oh yeah, like let's chug it, let's go. Like you're like watching these videos, like yes, this is so cool, and you fuck up your brain and you do some really stupid shit, and you don't even remember it half the time. I think I broke someone's car once.
Impressive.
Drunk strength, tried to open a door. I think I broke the door handle. Yeah,
You know what freaks me
I
out
can't
is
confirm.
drug-induced psychosis.
That's so
That
real.
scares the shit
And
out of
then
me.
they get sorry, you're gonna start something. In Humboldt County, there was a trend, at least like when we worked at the mental health facility, where we would get patients with a a lot of people would get diagnosed with what's called like schizoaffective disorder. But the problem was a lot of it was like the pattern that we like saw a lot of people having was like they were on like meth and shit, like drug induced like psychosis situation, and then they'd get diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, which is like schizophrenia, like similar in tier. But like sometimes that shit lasts, sometimes that shit doesn't. But if you're putting people like all on the same medication, like whether it's permanent or not, like that's fucking insane, because then you could actually give somebody like the side effects for medication that treat hearing voices in the night and like psychosis. The side effect, if you don't actually have that, is then developing those symptoms half the time. So then you think the meds just aren't working, and that person doesn't
And
need
then
those
you're
meds,
fucked.
and then they're fucked, and they're just
So why does
Yeah.
that scare you so much?
Well, I just, when you're a kid and you're getting wasted all the time and you're doing these things and then you make it out unscathed, you don't think anything about it. And then you hear these, doing this podcast, you hear these stories or you talk to these people that know their shit. And then you hear about how easy it is to tweak your mind the wrong way. And sometimes you might bounce back and sometimes you're just fucked. And that's your life now, is you went a little too far in one direction. And then it
Yeah.
happens that fast that your life is severely changed.
So have you done shrooms? Yes or no?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Now we're getting serious. Not even with shrooms, but just
Yeah.
high doses of marijuana.
Yeah.
You can have
Well,
a
technically,
psychotic break.
Yeah, it can be like a low dose like hallucinogen and everything. Anyway, a lot of people do have, well, especially back in
If
the day,
ingested.
Oh, that would be
Not
an edible. What are you
just
going to
in-
smoke an edible?
not just ingested. Like
Well-
you can have that experience when smoking. Like that. What do you think the paranoid experience is?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I think it's
like-
high dose THC. You could
Well, when you ingest it, it becomes
a different
like a
thing.
gummy. It becomes this mild hallucinogen.
It becomes more of that, but there are times when people literally are smoking just intense ass shit and they have absolutely no like nothing there, and then they sit there and think they're getting eaten by a fucking spider in a past life, and they're not because they're a human being sitting right there. So like yes, that does happen to people even with smoking. And yeah, like it's just you
Could
just
you
get it
imagine?
fucked up.
You're just hanging out with your friends one night. Somebody brought an edible,
Just
and you just never come back. You just go. It's like you blast
dude.
off into space, and now that's your life.
Oh, I
That
don't
is
need
your
an edible for
reality.
that.
I met a permafried person when I was a kid. Like
Permafry?
permafried. That's what we called it. Is like someone who did enough drugs or like continuously like did drugs and like or smoked like a shit fuck of weed to the point where like they didn't need anything whatsoever to just act like that constantly. That's how their mind worked from that point forward. And we called them just permafried. And there's like this chick, like I mean, she was pretty, you know, she was nice. I think we like might have been like 13, 14 at the time we met her. Like, but she just barely functioning, more or less had her house become a trap house down the street and thought it was chill to hang out with like 14-year-olds, which I was like, oh, you're not like someone's older sister or anything. I was like, this is weird. I was like, I'm good, but it's a thing. Like people, and then they can't really hang out with people like necessarily their age after that either, because unless they're like in a similar boat.
I saw a bunch of kids one time doing whippets. I walked into this room, and they were just
Oh,
sitting there. That's been probably the only time I've been legitimately uncomfortable of being in a certain spot because of like drug use or something. I've walked in, and just the look on their faces scared the shit out of me. I had this very real urge that this is not the spot I'm supposed to be. And I
So
was like, I knew all the people that were doing it. Like there was no physical danger, but just looking at their faces as they're doing this,
it's
it hit me in a weird way, whereas I could not get out of there fast enough.
I watched my friend literally fall backward. Like she's like, "Oh, do you want to do this with me?" And I think we had smoked a bit of weed, and I was like, I don't really know what that is." But it was like this old school, like oh, gee, you're taking it out of the can. Like you're not gonna buy like little like
Old school,
CO2
yeah.
cartridges. This is like again, we were fuck. I was probably still like 14 then too. Shit, just a kid, and no, I think I might have been 13 at the time. But anyway, she literally just fell like right back. Like she just did it, and she like collapsed onto the ground, and I was like. And then she, like, got up like, she, like, slowly got up, like, laughing, and I'm like, "Oh, fuck no." Like, I don't know what the fuck you just d like, I don't know what's happening to your brain. I'm like, "I'm fucking high. Like, I'm good. Like, this is enough for me. Like, this is already too much." And to watch you just collapse, like, onto the ground and then come back and you're like, "This is, like and this is great," and just be like
Let's do another one.
I'm like, "I'm not doing that." I'm like, "I'm
Yeah.
good."
what's the hardest drug you've done?
I'm not a hard drug guy. I would say alcohol is the hardest drug that I've done.
You don't want to shoot
Just
up some heroin right now?
yeah, no. I don't but see, I don't have an appeal for it. Like I don't even really like drinking. I do occasionally in situations like this if we're doing a podcast or something like that, but I don't like the effect of not being on top of my game the next day. I don't like not being able to work out. I don't like not being able to just function at my baseline. That irks me the wrong way.
It fucks with your baseline. Like, day of and the following day, definitely.
But it's weird you get that with alcohol, you don't get that with weed. Like weed you could
You
you could smoke weed and go work out.
I
Dude.
disagree.
You can get stoned enough to where, like, the next day you can, like, feel it. Like, especially if you do, like, edibles, anything that's longer lasting for your body.
Edibles, yes, but if
So
you're just
edibles will
smoking
get it
weed,
there. Yeah, but if you're smoking it well, if you don't get enough sleep, like, if you, like, go to bed and you really can only sleep, like, 3 hours, you could wake up still stoned, for sure. Um, but that's, like, easier to combat because in worst case scenario, you like I could drink, like, a fucking cup of tea and I'd be set. Like, I could literally just get Earl Grey out and I'd be good. Wouldn't even need, like, a rock star. Whether, like, if I'm super fucking hungover, though, from, like, alcohol, that's one of those times where, like, you're like, "I need all the caffeine, all the water. Give me a fucking breakfast sandwich." Like, you need way more to recover, definitely.
yeah, it's not for me. I'm not a big fan of it.
Yeah, weed's chiller, man.
You definitely look like a heroin guy.
I get that a lot. Get that a lot. There's something
It's
about my
just
persona.
I don't know. You're not really like veiny enough. Like,
And I don't have the track marks, which doesn't really help.
yeah, like I'm not really like seeing.
All right.
I don't think so.
All
Like,
right.
I don't think we
Here's
quite
a
hit
better
it.
question.
I don't
If you
know.
were guaranteed no negative side effects, no addiction, no nothing, what drug would you want to take?
See, I mean, I don't even have like the desire
Acid.
when acid would be used, but I don't view psychedelics the same way I view drugs. Like when I hear
They're
drugs, I
drugs,
think
man.
heroin. I think
Dude, I'm terrified of acid. I'm terrified of like, like any of those tripping out situations because I don't want to like go like on like DMT or some shit and then not come back.
I don't know if people don't come back from DMT.
I don't know.
I have
I've heard
acid.
of
I
people
have
like
heard that
not
people.
coming back.
Any
I mean, I've heard of people
substance.
not coming back from shrooms, man, and people microdose that shit all the time. And some people didn't come back from shrooms, which is like, damn you.
Have you ever
Should
tried a
be easy.
psychedelic?
No, I mean I've done weed. That's yeah.
Do you want to try one? Is that
I
like
do. I would think that it would be potentially an interesting experience, but I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I need like excessive therapy or something. I don't know what I need to like feel comfortable to do that.
there's that new ketamine facility that's
And
up and coming.
ketamine's just like fucking wild to me. I'm like, really? We're just
I kind of want to try that, but it's expensive. It is an expensive therapy.
I just want to eat a little mushroom, man. Like throw it on my pizza or something and call it good.
So what about
But
ketamine? Like, do you think you would benefit from the experience of?
I think most people would benefit from some sort of psychedelic experience. The problem is, it, at least from my very uneducated understanding, it seems like the first time you try it, you were playing Russian roulette. And that's contingent on dose, it's contingent on your setting. But the first time you do it, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's when you are susceptible to that possible break, especially if you have a background in mental illness and maybe you got some schizo somewhere in the family or some
or just heavy trauma, man.
yeah, or anything like that, and you've been pushing it down and then you go into this state and it just hits you like a freight train.
That's fair enough. Fair enough. All right.
This is why I joked heavy fucking therapy, man. Like just in case. Like make sure you've dealt with every possible thing that could pop up and then try it.
Or just I mean, yeah, what do you do?
I'd like-
Because if you want to try it and you're not sure, you just take the jump.
You just don't go in. I feel like if you're not sure, don't go into it. Like, and then when you do go into it, make sure you are in like a very like comfy, supportive, solid, like happy environment. Maybe make sure there's like some cool lights, like some hanging lights or something to like stare at. I don't know. That could be fun. There's
Have you ever tried
options here.
psychedelics?
No.
What's the hardest drug you've done?
Like on purpose or accident?
Wait, what?
Accidentally.
Damn, I feel like that opens the door to a lot of different drugs.
accidentally, let's go.
Yeah.
Who are you hanging out with?
The right people, obviously. No.
Cringe.
I don't. Hardest drug. Like willingly or
Just either
Why
or.
is that
accidentally, man.
I'm
'cause-
interested to see now what your choice is for both because I feel like that is.
Yeah, like you gotta give both at this point. Like honestly, like if there's
Oh,
a
fair
willing
enough,
and
fair enough.
unwilling, like
Because what is willing? Like
Like,
oh,
what did you
weed, and then unwilling is oh yeah, I had some cocaine that somebody slept into something.
that you could only can you do cocaine in other ways than snorting?
You can lace it in weed. You could like put a little bit on a
Oh.
joint, smoke that.
You can lace anything if you try
Wow.
hard enough.
Supposedly the weed
Huh.
and cocaine thing is a very interesting high.
I mean, I'm sure because like it's like semi-epi downer vibes, but okay. So what did you do unwillingly? Like
I think heroin. I don't know for sure.
Fuck, damn.
just come out of the fucking door with heroin?
Wow.
Okay.
I don't know for sure though, man. This was like in middle school, so
Oh.
I don't know.
And
No,
I'm sorry,
that's
what?
happened to people. Like laced weed with heroin, especially in bigger cities. That happened to like a coworker. She was giving me a story. They went and they bought like weed, what they thought was just weed, right? They thought it was just fire ass weed. They had this intense ass high, and then they're like, "So that was amazing. What the fuck was that?" And then they learned that they had done heroin the night before. And
How did they find out they did heroin?
I think it was a specific name they called it, apparently. And they were just these white girls thinking that they were buying like, buying the Loud, buying the Fuego, like just that good shit, like all the stupid names you'll call like good weed.
I'm
And so
gonna
they're
for
just
the
white
rest of this
girls thinking
podcast, I'm
those.
gonna please ask that you never speak to me and Nick like that ever again. Please. That was
No promises. So yeah, they ended up getting that, and they just thought that 'cause it was some weird name, so they just assumed it just meant that it was like really good because they always come out with like dumb, stupid names for like really good weed, and they like asked their coworker or something about it the next day, like when they were living down there, and the guys like they were like, yeah, that means it's laced with heroin.
Is that what happened to you? Is you thought you were
I,
smoking some weed and
yeah, man. It was middle school.
It's fucking middle school. I can't judge you, but fuck.
It was middle school. We were all smoking heroin.
that's crazy.
Oh my god, that's a joke. Like, just disclaimer that, dude.
You guys didn't smoke heroin in middle
No.
school? Oh shit. Okay, damn.
No,
I'm
we were
outing
more
myself like
meth.
that.
We didn't really fuck around with heroin.
Yeah.
This is
No.
like stoner city, bro. Like, I did smoke weed when I was like 11. That's not a joke. Like, I did actually end up smoking weed when I was 11 years old. I burned my bangs off.
Smoking weed?
Smoking weed because we got so stoned. I had to go to school like the next Monday with like these tiny little singe spot right here, like the top of my head. It was severely embarrassing and it was
See,
awful.
that's an interesting thing. Do you think that messed with your development at all? Do you think you were any different than you would have been had you not done that at such a young age?
I already had apparently the stoner vibe because even in elementary school, I had people thinking that like I was a stoner and like had been actively smoking weed, and I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. But I think if anything, it may have like helped accompany like the whole nah fuck it, like the laissez-faire portion of the attitude of like at the end of the day, what really matters is that I have to like go get a decent job and like work hard. Like, if it's not actually helping me get to that point, these things really don't matter. So like schoolwork, just I knew a lot of it was insignificant compared to like other things, depending on what I was planning to do. It helped me say fuck it. Yeah. Yeah, so it may have fucked things up a little bit. I don't know. It's hard to tell now.
That's the thing, right? You don't know
I have no
what
idea.
has influenced what.
Yeah, like I don't think it caused anxiety, honestly. Like that was like a more nurture aspect. I don't think it caused like any of that. I think it may have just been a crutch. I don't know.
Well, that's the big thing with Ritalin, right? Didn't they used to prescribe that to kids as like an ADHD medication and it just fucked a bunch of kids up?
I don't know. I had that as an adult though, and that wasn't terrible.
Was Ritalin?
It was Ritalin. Yeah, they gave me Ritalin for a short period of time as an adult, like less than a year, because it started fucking with my arterial flow of my legs. Like I started getting like Raynaud's and all that. Like the capillaries don't fill up as quickly, like in your fingers and feet.
No,
Probably
I'm not
not.
familiar
Yeah,
with that,
okay,
yeah.
that's fair enough. And like some neuropathy. So pain in my feet very cold, not getting enough blood flow.
And that was from the Ritalin?
Yeah. And smoking and caffeine. Don't get me wrong. Like those all and alcohol.
Everything adds
Actually,
up, right?
like yeah,
Everything
if you
plays a
drink
part.
alcohol, you drink caffeine, and you smoke cigarettes, actually all of those things attribute to it. But stimulants, especially, so like caffeine and Ritalin, especially have a factor on that. But I'm curious now. So you may have accidentally done heroin. What the fuck did you do on purpose that was the hardest drug? I'm gonna go back to that.
Life. I chose life.
That was pretty bad. I was trying to learn something.
It was God, how old was I? Honestly, I can't remember. I think it was when I first moved up here, but Coke for sure. Wasn't a fan of it. Not a fan of uppers, and I think I tried it once, and then I was just no, I don't like this. I'm not a fan, so it would have to be Coke. Heroin would have to be the hardest on accidental.
That still shocks me.
Yeah.
I wonder what the difference between Coke and Adderall would feel like for someone that doesn't have ADHD.
Okay, for someone who doesn't have ADHD. I don't think there'd be, I mean, one's going to be long lasting, whereas cocaine is like a 10-minute drug.
Is it really only 10 minutes?
If it's pure cocaine, like actually just cocaine, it's only a few minutes of a situation. That's
That's
why
why
it's
it's
so
so
expensive.
expensive,
Like
man,
you have
is-
to sit there and keep snorting.
Oh yeah.
Like that's why people keep going to the bathroom like crazy. If you're at a party where they're doing coke, that's what they're doing. Like they're just re-upping every 10 to 15, max 20 minutes. Whereas if you ever did cocaine and it lasted longer, it could be cut with Adderall, it could be cut with Ritalin, or it could be cut with fucking meth. Which, okay, if I was gonna say the worst accidental drug I might have done, it might have been meth. Because I did a line of coke the first time. I tried it that first time, and oh, I'm not gonna. It was at a mutual friend's house. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I was gonna tell you, but we're on a podcast. So
yeah,
anyway,
probably keep that down though.
yeah. So anyway, this was many years ago, fresh out of high school, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll try it. Everybody else was doing it. Did one line. I was good for the entire night, and I couldn't go to sleep at all. And I was like, it wasn't a good feeling. Like obviously, like things going in your nose doesn't feel great, and I literally couldn't go to bed. And I was like, this is fucking awful. I have to work tomorrow. I was like, people just do this and they keep like going back and doing this. It seems wrong. And then like I found out from another friend later on, like, oh yeah, a lot of people will cut it with like a small amount of like it's like a small amount of meth. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, because meth's way cheaper. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, is that why I couldn't sleep?
Well, that's the big thing with fentanyl right now. Is
It's
everybody's
cutting-
just
yeah.
cutting everything with fentanyl.
It's fucking terrifying. Yeah. So like back then it was like, holy shit, you could end up doing fucking like so my mind back then, this is like 2000. What's this? This might have been like the end of 2015 even. Like it was that long ago. And I was like, holy shit, that is fucking like that. Okay, that's awful. And like so I was like, oh my God, so things can be cut with that. Like, okay, so that's great. That's good to know. That's like fucking awful. And yeah, now it's all fentanyl, but just and apparently the best thing people cut it with is like fucking flour and like vitamin C fucking pills and shit like that. That's the better things apparently they'll cut it with. I had someone give me like basically a documentary on like what you can cut cocaine with, and I was like, okay, good to know. It's because they were cocaine salesmen also on the side, and they were giving me their life story on that front, and I was like, I think they were also high on cocaine is why they were telling me about it. I'm really unsure. I wasn't monitoring that party situation. I was just drinking, so it wasn't really my problem. But I did get a full spiel, and I was like, okay.
A lot of moving parts in that story.
Yeah, you're welcome. This is how you find out things. You go to a party where you accidentally meet people that
Or you sit and drink in a
apparently do things.
podcast.
Or you sit and drink at a podcast.
All right. So out of curiosity, man,
Terrible.
what is your story?
My story?
Yeah,
What is that? That's a very open-ended question.
that's the point.
It's like, when were you born? 1997. That's part of my story. What do you mean, what is your story?
what is your story
In terms of...
of you?
Well, I mean, we could sit here and talk for 4 hours or 5 seconds about that. What do you mean?
That's kind of the point. He wants you to figure
I know
out
he wants me to fill in the gaps for what that question
Yeah.
entails, and that's
He
why I'm trying
likes-
to pull out a little bit more.
He likes to figure out how people are going to respond.
Well, the best part about that question is how people respond. It's the response says more about people than the initial what they tell you. I guess what they tell you, and I guess more or less. I mean, what led you to the point in your life that I guess where you're at now? Like what got you here? What is the stream of events?
Still staying very broad with our line of questioning.
What's your life story, man? Who is Nick Flores? What made Nick Flores
No. If I do the whole name, it has to be Nicholas.
Nicholas
Thank you.
Flores? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Better ring.
What?
It rolls off the tongue a little bit better.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I cringed a little
Firm
bit when I
disagree.
said Nick earlier a few times. I was like, it's just not.
What made
You're one of the last few people that still call me Nicholas.
I brought it back at one point.
You did. In high
Yeah.
school, you brought it back.
Yeah.
You
you're
had a lot of
welcome.
people saying it.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah, now it's just my parents that say Nicholas. Only in certain situations.
When you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those situations.
You went to you went to school, obviously. You got a degree that you're not super utilizing at the
I use it
moment.
all the time.
Yeah, okay. All
Wait,
right.
what's your
Yeah.
degree in?
It was in cognitive science and computer science.
Yeah. I mean,
So
so
really, I use it all. I
yeah,
mean, I'm using
computer
it all the time.
science for sure. Yeah. I mean,
So,
this takes computer work.
I guess what do you do work in computer science
No,
or
What's your
no.
what's your day job?
I do upholstery. I do like construction labor. That's what I do. I do labor jobs.
Very
what?
good.
I guess are you not interested in the work in the field and like what aspect of it has kept you from finding a job with your uh with, with with your degree, man? I mean, it's a pretty fucking lucrative business. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in that field. I just don't. I love the work. I used to go, I mean, I'd go out to a party, get wasted, and then go home and write code and like talk about how much I loved writing code. I was that nerdy about the programming side of that.
fair
So
enough.
it's not loving the work. I just don't fit into that mold of the person that's going to sit at some desk and write, a couple 100,000 lines of code for somebody else to go use for something. That was never my MO. I don't.
So how did you end up podcasting anyway? Like what was like the moment that you're like, I'm
When
gonna
did this
just do
turn into
this?
like? Why do I feel like we're on some therapy session of? Hey
What,
Nick, intervention time. We're gonna
Well,
talk.
he asked a question. He
Nicholas? Do you
sometimes
want to
doesn't ask
unpack
well.
that?
I don't know.
Yes, let's go back to my childhood and see if we can figure out where it starts from
I'd love to
there.
talk about that. We can do that. That's fine.
Were you bullied by your
What's your
older sibling?
story?
That story question is such an interesting question.
Yeah, what's your story, man? That's what I'm asking. I'm asking necessarily.
I think you might have to just like buy him a drink off air for that one.
No, it's not. I'm
Oh,
not trying. No, I'm not trying to hide anything in that sense. I just think that question is fascinating. Yes, there's a part in how somebody responds to it, but there's
mhm.
also a part in what it says about you as a person asking that because it is very broad.
What does that say about me? Aside from it's a broad question.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about you
You haven't
to make that.
asked.
I know, but to make that distinction, when somebody asks broad questions like that, it could be because they don't know enough to go any deeper. So you started this baseline of we're going to take a broad overview and then see what's interesting off that and where we can go. Or it's just like a throwaway question. I mean, there's not really a bad way to counter that in somebody's response. Like, oh, are you happy in life? Like you could just go ask that to somebody and then
That's
you're
not what
gonna
I'm
get a
asking. But that's not what
response.
I'm asking, though.
I know, but it's not like there's no real depth in that question. So tell me about your life or tell me about yourself.
I disagree. The depth. I don't. There's no.
If somebody asked you that question, how would you respond? If I asked you right now that same question.
I would ask that you ask first or answer first, rather.
See, it's like a weird game
Why?
that devolves into.
Why is it a game? What aspect about it is a
Well, that's
game?
like, tell me about your life.
Tell me about yourself. Tell me about the story that you want to tell me.
The big thing is like I've watched a lot of people respond to that question in like various ways. You have people who go into like like just heavy detail, like childhood trauma, step by step, like all throughout it. Then you have other people who focus on their career. There's the people who focus on like their relationship aspects, interpersonals, and there's people who just like kind of skim over it all and call it good. So you just have a huge variation. Um, which is genuinely telling about where the person's at, like what their mind brings up when they hear that question. Um, which is why Michael is a shit and fixates on it. Because there is an opportunity to like you can go really wherever you want. I mean, it's literally just you pull out whatever that person's brain comes up with. And so like there's people who are very defensive. They're gonna have a very defensive response. There's people who are very traumatized and open and just like a fucking like loose nerve ending, like just a cut open nerve ending, just sitting there exposed, and they're gonna like run, and you're like, oh shit, sorry for asking that one, but it is interesting to see where people are at in their lives because that is what dictates their response, definitely, and their mental state. So I will advocate for that portion of it. Bless. At the same time, would I make you or try to get you to answer that on a podcast where it's recorded and you're probably going to upload it and that's going to exist forever and be mildly embarrassing potentially? Probably not. Just saying.
No, I don't have any problem
I don't know.
answering like, I'm not shying away from it because I'm worried about spilling my deepest, darkest secrets and looking bad or something like
Who
that.
knows what pops into your head when you thought, like when that question comes up? I don't know. It
I
can be a little bit
It
much.
literally popped into
I
my
know
head that
he isn't telling us.
no, that it's just I feel like it's just kind of a shit question. Not in like a rude way. I just feel like
If it's
y-
too broad, it is harder to answer.
but
Yeah.
it's almost like you're kind of trying to walk this rope. You're on this line and you're like, I don't want to be deep and ask a real like existential question or something that I might really care about and figure out how you feel about it, but I don't want to ask something super basic like, "Oh, how's the weather?"
What are your
So, it's
defining
almost
virtues?
That's a better question.
that is a better question. That is a better question. What are your defining virtues? I'm I've been working on the idea of character lately and figuring out how I feel about that. I would say that is one of my virtues, is figuring out who you are and what kind of person you want to be and acting in accordance with that. I feel like, at least in my life, some of the greatest pains that I have went through have been acting against my nature, doing things that I know were stupid at the time and still doing it, or doing things that I don't feel align with the kind of person that I want to be. I feel like that's where pain comes from, is you're going against your own nature. And see, I can articulate that because I think that was a better question. If the other question, it's almost like, so tell me a story. It's like, well, what kind of story do you want to hear? That was a better question.
The great thing about that is that you did not answer my question, though.
A character. I mean, how many do you want me to?
What makes a character is virtue. The aspects of things that you hold dear to you.
Yeah, acting in accordance with your nature. So
Right,
figuring
but
out
what
what.
aspects of it, what aspects of your nature define you? Do you value loyalty? Do you value honesty? I haven't gotten any any sense of definitive characteristics that I can, that essentially answer my question. I mean, character absolutely makes, it makes a person who they are. It helps makes their decisions. It ultimately defines somebody, but ultimately, what makes a character is virtues. And what aspects of virtue do you try to initially initially try to incorporate in the way that you live?
Well, I guess maybe I was speaking a little too broad, but in my mind, it's more
Oh,
concrete. Character for me is integrity. It is, the male trope of being a provider. It is acting with intention. When I say character, that's what I think of. So those would be more concrete virtues, but I think I'm still working through the idea of character, which is why I kind of phrased it how I did.
that's fair enough. And I think everybody the our entire lives we spend it trying to initially create the character that we want to be, or and sometimes it's
See, I
sometimes
don't view it as creating a character. I feel like it's almost un it's almost removing the outer layer that you've built around yourself. I feel like that's more in line with where I find myself. That I had built up this thing and now it's almost trying to strip that away.
so who do you want to be?
A better version of myself.
What does that mean?
These questions are
What does a
very.
better version of yourself look like?
I think I'll know that tomorrow. And then I think the next day I'll have. But really, I think that's. I don't know what a better version of myself is, but I know that it is not what I currently am. And so tomorrow I'll have a slightly better understanding and hopefully achieve slight progress in that direction. And then the next day I will take that step again. And then the next day, I don't know. There's no finished product. You can't ask me,
No, I
well,
mean
what's the
it's
perfect version of you? I don't know. I might change tomorrow. But I know that there is incremental progress that can be made to get me closer. And those are the steps that I take.
Is there anything that you consider to be like progressive movement that you are doing or would like to start doing for that?
Oh, now we're going to get into social justice. Meaning, what are we
Like
talking? Like BLM?
No,
Like
we're talking
what? No,
about
no, no. I mean,
Parenthood? What
like
are we?
you specifically. So some people like when they're saying, "Oh, a better version of myself." Oh, like I'm gonna slowly like work through that, whatnot. There's like the classic, obviously, gym, eat better, be nicer to people. Like there's all those kind of like basic things. But there's also like certain like interpersonal things you can also do as well. And in that regard. And so, are there any things, in getting that better version of yourself, helping like move towards that? Are there any things that you've been like, I need to, or I would like to, or I am doing blank, I need to do more of that actions that would then help progress that in your mind at this moment that you've thought of already by
Read more
chance?
philosophy. That is
Touche.
where I had a. I won't shout out the guest. Well, yeah, I will. I had Juan Pablo Cervantes on, and he sent me Epictetus's handbook, and so I've been reading that, and I have Marcus Aurelius's book as well, his
he's a good
journal.
read. Which one?
I believe Marcus Aurelius only has one, and it's like his
Oh, I
journal that's out.
misheard that.
Oh, no worries. So, and I actually stopped reading Marcus's to finish Epictetus because obviously the Stoic he kind of fed into where Marcus went, and Marcus can kind of reflect on. I'm just probably speaking into the void here right now, but
A little
in
bit.
reading those books, it has become very apparent to me that that Stoic way of life is very alluring, and I think
What
in
about it?
pursuit of philosophy, just I think I think that ties back into my answer of character. I think those two are very entwined. Acting in accordance with nature. I think there's something about that idea that I find very interesting at this phase of my life.
All right, so if you're gonna be a D&D character, I feel like you might be like an elf druid. Or like a nature class in there of some sort.
I don't know what that translates to.
That's
They
okay.
could say, "Oh, you're gonna be."
Yeah,
Da, da,
yeah.
da, da."
Well, maybe not even a druid,
You're
but like
being vague.
I know. But in my mind, anytime I've ever thought of like a character that was like in tune, sorry, you just mentioned in tune with nature. I always think of like elf fucking druids half the time are typically the ones that end up being a character that's played as like, very in tune with like fucking nature. Elf is obviously like you could be like a woodland elf, like an elf. Just I'm sure you've seen movies and shows where elves existed, in the woods and things like that. But I'm trying to make this a more fun conversation. I'm not gonna lie, y'all are killing me a little bit. And like druid is just magic, more or less. I know I'm butchering that. Don't kill me.
The magic of the human spirit.
But yeah, I mean, you're more in tune with that like aspect. Like a lot of like, when people play some of those characters, at least like I've seen firsthand, they are like actively, trying to make sure they're not fucking with like they're doing healthier things. They're, actually, they do smoke some weed, don't get me wrong, but like they're doing healthier things and they're definitely not going on their lawn and just saying fuck you. Like they're just there's more in tune. There's more of a better vibes.
A little more grounded,
Yeah.
maybe in a sense.
What is living I guess in regards to nature like mean to you?
We're really trying to hammer in on my philosophical
I
standpoint
was
on
trying
life.
so
huh?
hard to
You
pull
were
back.
trying.
Man. I was like,
You went straight to
let's,
D and D. You're like,
let's
okay,
take the
let's
heat off.
let's
Like,
turn the
I was like,
ship.
I could pull out an app. Like, we could sit here and like character build real quick. Like, it'll be fun.
Do you guys have a lot of these discussions when it's just you two? Do you get existential like that?
I try to have these conversations
Man.
with everyone.
He does. But yeah, we've definitely had plenty of those over the fucking nearly 6 years, definitely. And there are plenty of times where I'm in the spot of like, okay, like if I'm high, let's be honest, like you can be high or drunk sometimes and your brain's like, I'm not there, or just fucking tired. Mostly it's usually just tired. Like it's like late at night, I'm literally in the bed, lights are off. He's like, so what about this existential thing? And I'm like, what about the what? in the who and the bitch, it's 12 a.m. Like, what do you mean? What about that? Like, yeah, I'll try and respond, I guess. And then, like, you start snoring in between responses. It's great. It's 10 out of 10. I just want to be asked when I'm awake. That's all I ask. So, yeah, you're in the hot seat. So I was trying to pull you out of it.
I don't feel like I'm in the hot seat.
I don't know.
I mean, 90% of what this thing is just.
It is back and it should no, it should be back and forth, but you got slammed like the last like 10 questions. So
Yeah, you were on a track there
Yeah.
for a minute where.
yeah, so I was like,
felt
okay, that's a
I
lot
was-
of questions.
I was
in a
trying to figure
row.
out where this was going. Maybe it was to build my D&D character, figure out which I would fit in best with.
Would you be down to play D&D?
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't really understand it past the very cursory knowledge that you gave me on that podcast.
Which is like next to no knowledge. I know nothing, but great news. You can just have a podcast where it's like you learning how to build a character and then potentially having like a campaign and just like recording that like once every few weeks.
People do that. People have D&D.
I know.
Podcasts.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was where the thought
that
came
was
from. I'm
awkward.
sorry.
Okay.
I know it exists. Sorry. I don't watch them. I've heard tell of them.
But see, my thing is, why play D&D when you could play Call of Duty? Like, that's what gets me. It's like, just go play Call of Duty.
Why do you believe those are comparable in the slightest? That is
Well,
dumb.
D&D, everything is in your mind, and I get that that's alluring for some people.
Not
but
everything. People like put like music on. Like people make like miniatures and
yeah,
shit.
but Call of Duty, I
like,
gotta blow shit up.
and it's on the
and
screen.
watch it
and it's
happen.
like right
you
then
get
and
to, you get
there.
to,
You get to see-
you get to
shoot
commit
people.
genocide in D&D, man. You get to nuke world. You get to,
That can't
be a murder
happen. That's not, like,
hobo.
guaranteed.
Or you can be, a hero of justice, a hero of virtue, and go out of your that's the beauty of it, man. Is that you the
It
whole
does take
aspect
way
of
too long.
of like role playing.
It's like multi-days sometimes,
Dude,
right?
you're
Isn't it?
literally
It's
like
months,
you're stuck
years, depending
there.
on your, a DM.
One session can be hours. I mean, I haven't played a session that long, but like they've been at the house playing a fucking session for like 8 fucking hours. Like I got a mimosa, I did laundry, I made food, I cleaned, I like went back and forth from the house like 3 times, went shopping. They're still fucking there. At that point, like I'm like watching TV and like in a different room, and I'm like, Jesus, 8 fucking hours later. I'm like, are you guys even okay? Like, I'm done. Like, I'm ready to go to bed. You guys are still fucking playing games. I'm like, what the fuck? It's intense. It's impressive.
And so, what are you guys trying to do? Like, the general D&D playthrough. What is it? What do you?
Oh, that greatly depends. From my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, on like the campaigns, like the dungeon master.
You're wrong.
Fuck you. The person in charge, like, obviously comes up with like their world, and they may, come up with like what they like want you to face and whatnot. They're gonna take into consideration, of course, like each person's like background and character, and things they may be struggling with, to then be able to move forward through the game and like entwine that like within the game itself. So like if someone's coming in there and they're, they're like super poor and they've fucking fucked somebody over in like 3 towns over or some shit, you may have to deal with the people that they fucked over. Like that might come back into the game later. And it's, some of the games can be set in like futuristic time frames. They can be set in like Star Wars-esque situations. They can be in like olden times, like, medieval, the fuck ton of magic. I mean, you can really just like pick a game that you really like to play, like Call of Duty. It can be set in like Call of fucking Duty. Like you can have it set like that, and you'll just be doing like different versions of like that, and like that's how your campaign runs. Is like, and everyone has to like get these different guns and everything, and you have to like go and collect them.
See, now imagine that in VR.
I do think that I'm gonna sneeze. Maybe not. I do think that D&D in VR would be fucking great. Genuinely.
And you could actually be in those places and doing those things. And
it can also be mortifying as fuck, because you can get eaten by a dragon. Like, a lot of different things can happen. You can like fall out of a plane, like get kicked out of a ship for potentially carrying a disease. Just bye. That happened in one of his games. Like one of the guys like kicked out of the fucking ship because he might have contracted a disease that was like fucking with, magic or something. Um,
I don't know. I wasn't there.
you were on the show. That was your game. You were in it. Whatever. But yeah, someone literally got kicked out of a fucking ship.
So is there like a rule set that people?
Yeah. Like,
Do you have to
Yeah.
get like
with
certified?
any game. No,
You
you
have to
don't
get
have to get
certified.
certified.
I'm
You-
definitely not certified in any of it. I mean, there's like rule books to like help you figure out like what the spells are, like what spells you're allowed to learn if you're gonna be like doing magic, what kind of like armor and stuff you could possibly get, like what kind of guns you can use if you're gonna need like another weapons and all that. There's
It's just
stuff in
open to
things.
interpretation in a lot of ways.
Yeah, your DM's the
Well,
person who's gonna be
it's
like,
the beauty of
nah.
it, man. It's a role playing sandbox where essentially you get to shape the world through your actions, and it's think of it as a very interactive kind of open-ended like role like storybook. You can change the way you can see the way your character affects the world. You can choose to slay the priest that is sacrificing everybody to like some kind of demon god and make their lives better, or you can just choose to ignore it and not give a shit about it, and then it come back and bite you to the ass. Like it's a very much interactive uh sandbox that you can
Your
just get
side
to
quests are
play, and
important.
depending on mechanic wise, there's different classes and stuff like that that you can play as, and in terms of the way encounters happen, it can make or break uh the world. Hey, I'm gonna go fuck with this magical item, and it turns out, oh yeah, this is some kind of tie into this god on this plane. And since you fucked with it, like a boo in the Cave of Wonders, Aladdin, it can have dire consequences, and you'll see it immediately, or you might see it, happen 3 or 4 or 5 campaign sessions away. Like, hey, this priest that I slayed was actually somebody very important, and so now, because I killed him, this even worse priest that runs like the local village's church has decided, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a contract with the demon, and I'm gonna slowly push that like aspect of it. And because you didn't do anything about it, you now have to deal with this like town becoming a demonic spawn hotspot or something like that. And it's the appeal of it is that it's a kind of like just a sandbox, man. It's a breathing, living world that you have tangible effects on as a playable character. And then on top of that, you create a character that if you uh if you're and you can either play it as just a game, or you can play it as like a kind of just an imaginative exercise in regards to different possibilities of different aspects of human character. you know or again, it's a good way to kind of, it's a good mental exercise to really approach a lot of complicated questions and problems in a sandbox, in a safe setting. Like, hey, if I'm a really shitty person, and
Do you
just
want to pull your mic?
Yeah.
There it
Like,
is.
push
There it
it.
is.
I keep not doing that, but
but it's
I need like a guy in here that just runs around and adjusts mics. He's just like, oh, let me go.
um
Shout out to Angel.
I was trying really hard right there, but it's
but
still.
yeah, it's essentially a living, breathing world that you get to interact with as a character, and the character can have any kind of backstory or upbringing, or along with like the aspect of class in terms of like whether you're a wizard, druid, warrior, so on and so forth. It just ultimately affects, you build a story for why this person decides to become like a Shaolin monk or whatever, or somebody who sells their soul for a contract to become a sorcerer.
Man, people are so interesting. Because somebody invented that. And somebody also invented the iPhone. Not to shit on one or the other, but just the breadth of human innovation is insane.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've got people coming up with D&D. We have people inventing Call of Duty. We have people
Well, and I would.
We have people
It's
building
games and
pyramids.
like
What's the
general,
appeal of
man.
Call of Duty for you, man? Like what?
Oh man, it's just so much fun. It's just so much fun. Call of Duty is
I love committing war crimes.
Call of Duty has been my shit since middle school. I've been playing those games.
No
And then it
shit.
got weird when they started doing jetpacks, and now they're back. Modern Warfare 2 is pretty legit. That's been my shit lately. And the Battle Royale option is Warzone is my shit.
What's your opinion on the state of video games nowadays?
In terms of
Quality,
oh, well, it's definitely better than it's ever been.
is it?
I mean, would you want to go back to Pong?
Mm, I think in terms of going back to Pong, maybe. I mean, you have how many iterations of fucking Tetris, with
Well, in
like
terms of
Candy Crush and stuff like
in
that.
terms of graphics, in terms of, I mean, just storyline, it's better today. There are those ones that stand the test of time, like Tetris, but Tetris is surface level. Tetris is like checkers, that it's just they've reached
Maybe.
this escape velocity where everybody knows what checkers is, or chess. Everybody has played chess. Then you got
You'd hope,
Tetris.
yeah.
So I guess I would argue that in terms of quality of graphics, yeah, that's undeniable, man. That's just tech getting better. I think in terms of story, I think in terms of creativity, um, there's aspects of it that yeah, for sure you can, and of course it's all a subjective opinion, just much like with anything, you know, in the world. Um, I think in terms of storytelling, there's this concept of like, okay, well, is it a good thing that like you can appeal to a mass audience now in terms of like video games? Like video gaming is like bigger than ever. Uh and like on one hand that's a great thing because now, it's just something that everybody actively indulges in. But, in terms of like quality, in terms of like storytelling or respect for like video game lore or the worlds that these video games exist in, it's I think it's a pro and a con, as things become more readily accessible to people in terms of like media. I think there's like a corporate aspect of it that like things tend to get watered down because you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible.
I mean, yes, there is that. When the space is more open, you're gonna have people submit shitty stuff because it's more accessible. But there's also gonna be more incredible stuff too.
Well, but and I guess to give you an example, in terms of like movie making, the aspect of certain themes and stories and that are willing to be told through any kind of media, TV, film, radio, podcast, et cetera, books. It's if you're trying to appeal to as many people as possible, you can't it becomes harder and harder to really delve into more uncomfortable topics because it can have the opposite reaction where you just in terms of like like The Last of Us, and so it's you have these uh you have people
I can't tell, is this argument going in favor of gatekeeping or going against it?
I think there's important aspects of it that are necessary, but at the same time, you can't necessarily. I guess that's the argument of you do need new people and new ideas, because new people bring new ideas in order to address this. I think a certain level of gatekeeping is important. And this goes for just anything. I mean, you can apply the aspect of gatekeeping to,
But when has gatekeeping ever made anything better? Like, when does anything ever get better by blocking out competition?
I think it really depends. and and again, it's more of a philosophical aspect of it. Is all change good? Is progress good? Is all progress good? It's all depends on
Yeah, but
inherent.
there's a difference between stifling progress and giving that ability to a gatekeeper and letting them decide what passes through the membrane,
I think
as
there's
opposed to just blanketly
right.
stopping
Well, and
progress.
again, that's where the issue kind of just that's where the point of contention is. Just like, okay, well, how much are we suffocating ourselves by gatekeeping versus just opening the floodgates and being as accessible as possible? When you're accessible as possible, there's you get drowned out trying to cater to as many people as possible, and that changes a lot of the way the content is necessarily written or conveyed. The themes that you can address are versus the themes that you can address or trying to address kind of radically change because what makes sense for one person or the story that you're trying to tell you know really changes. Like and I guess you see that aspect a lot in terms of hyper fixation of like identity and stuff like that, where as opposed to trying to tell a very human story as opposed to just the struggle of a uh uh you know a Mexican American immigrant, to not it's very niche, and it becomes very niche.
Yeah, but then that's part of it, right? So it goes niche and it sucks, and then something new comes up and takes its place. Whereas if you had the gatekeepers in place, that one thing that sucked might just stay the top dog because we're
Right.
stifling
And that's why
competition.
right. And but there and again, it's a gradual.
Is this? I feel like, are you trying to take this to a more philosophical worldview standpoint in terms of social movement? Where is this going?
Oh, I think we had the same issue. We had the same issue at the shanty. It can apply to a lot of different fields, man. I mean, take your pick.
No, but be concrete with it. What is?
Oh, you're
Yeah,
asking a
I'm trying to figure out.
Herculean
I'm
task of
trying to
me, man.
Angel, translate for me. Where are
Okay,
we
so
trying?
this
Where are we
this
trying to go with this right
typically
now? Because
hits
I'm
for
lost in
like
the sauce.
this typically hits for like media in general as well as like games and so on and so forth. Where think of it like you're gonna make your face like favorite pasta dish, but now you need to accommodate all these people and like a shit fuck of them may or may not have an allergy to like gluten, to like maybe they're lactose intolerant, like whatever. Like so they have allergies and like it's like say it's like fettuccine alfredo, right? Like some basic shit. Like you obviously have a
Yo, you shitting
pasta.
on fettuccine right now?
No, I love fettuccine.
Okay.
That's the
But that's
problem.
the problem, yeah, actually. But like, so it has, it has gluten typically because pasta typically has gluten and like all these things, right? So like, there's just it's a simple dish, but obviously it has lactose and it has gluten and some other spices and whatnot. And you're trying to make this more palatable for a large group. You're going to change a lot of the core features of this dish to then make it more palatable. In this case, it probably wouldn't taste as good. In a lot of cases, it might taste pretty great, whatever. Depends on like what food you're trying to change for it. The
No,
commentary,
I
yeah,
understand the pandering
to a large
to a larger
population,
audience
yeah.
and how that waters down the product. What I don't understand is the connection to
Like the whole
gatekeeping
gatekeeping
and how
thing.
that then is beneficial because it
I'll give you an
blocks that
example.
out.
I'll give you an example. All right. Say you are cooking for a
Just
group of
these
people.
food.
We're going back to food.
Yeah. Well, it's the easiest way to, I guess, try to make my point. Um, say you're in a room, you're cooking for 4 people. You're making this chicken Alfredo. You're making this chicken Alfredo, right? And you make it for this group of people, and nobody has an issue with it, anything like that. It's a really relatively standard dish, so on and so forth. Okay. So now everybody, your friends tell their friends about how good your chicken Alfredo is. And then they show up to your party or your dinner or whatever, you invite them over, so on and so forth. And then you cook this dish for them, and then they're vegetarian. that process is an issue. That means you have to address that in some way. So and slowly, you start having more and more people kind of just have more input on the way that this dish should be prepared. And so, in order to accommodate everybody that you're having over for dinner, you gotta have to make some changes. And some of it may be good, some of it may not be bad, or some of it may be bad. But and then ultimately, when you try to please too many people, you lose focus of what you're trying to make initially, if that makes sense.
I
So
understand. We're still at the
And
surface level of we haven't you haven't gone to the gatekeeping side yet. So but that's
you
where
could gatekeep
not
no
by.
but
vegans allowed.
that's where no gatekeeping.
Yeah.
But really, that's where no gatekeeping is best, because if you go over to this person's house and they're pandering to everybody and water down the pasta to make it vegan or whatever, free market decides you just don't go over to that person's house anymore. You say, well, I like my fettuccine this way. And so since there's no gatekeeper deciding how fettuccine is going to be made, you get to go over to this other person's house and say, fuck the vegans. We're eating
Yeah.
our fettuccine with chicken.
So
But if it was a gatekeeper scenario and the gatekeeper decides all fettuccine is now vegan, there's nowhere else to go because you have a gatekeeper in place setting whatever rules they see fit. So I'm lost. I'm not lost at the top level that you guys are laying out. I'm lost
So
where the connection to
swap it a
gatekeeping
little
is
bit.
good comes in.
Is there a
So
bathroom?
Yeah, we can. Well, actually, we can wrap. We can. 36 o'clock, guys.
point where gatekeeping would be good is you can then have a gatekeeper protecting that house's fettuccine alfredo, chicken fettuccine alfredo, and then saying, if you don't like this, you can't, like, you just don't come and you don't eat it, you don't complain about it. Like,
Yeah, but
be
then what if
gone.
you're a vegan and then you're fucked?
Well, there's other houses, there's other games you can play. So like
But
this
that's
one
only
game,
if there's not gatekeepers. If there's one
you can gatekeep
gatekeeper,
a game.
yeah, but if there's a overall gatekeeper for fettuccine,
No,
and you can
no.
only make, see, now we're setting levels of gatekeeper. It's either all or
Exactly.
nothing.
But
No, no,
but
no.
that's the
It's not
point.
like can't you just gatekeep one game? Like, isn't that a thing? Like, can you?
No,
No, you
no,
gatekeep
no,
everything.
no. It's
I don't even know what gatekeeping is. Then shit. Okay, I
it's
thought you could gatekeep
it's
like there's
it's an
gatekeepers for a
aspect of
game.
like you can apply
Even
that same mentality or that same philosophy to like any kind of interest or hobby or anything like that. Where you have somebody coming to your dinner and demanding that you accommodate them, because they don't
But
eat
the only
chicken.
way you get to say fuck you to that person is if there's no gatekeepers,
unless you're
right?
the gatekeeper saying "fuck you,"
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
it's
if you're
either
the
or.
person being told fuck you can't do anything about it because there's gatekeepers. So that's what I'm struggling with, is either way, having a
You're
gatekeeper
either
seems like you're
saying "fuck
fucked
you" or
or
somebody else is
being
telling
fucked.
you "fuck you." At some point, someone's getting the "fuck you." Like,
So you're pro gatekeeper in certain situations, I think, is what we're boiling down to.
I think everybody is, man.
Not me. I'm not.
Oh no, that's bullshit.
Fuck gatekeepers.
That's bullshit.
I wouldn't be doing this podcast if they were gatekeepers.
No, man. All right.
This wouldn't be a thing.
If I
There
walked
was-
into your studio right now and started doing fucking lines of coke on camera, what would your reaction be?
I'd watch you do the coke.
You'd watch me do the coke? What if I light up a cigarette right now? You're gatekeeping me from smoking on your.
Yeah, but free market, you could go to somebody else's podcast and smoke a cigarette.
Yeah, but the fact that you're not adhering to me.
wait, but you let the coke happen?
Yeah, what the fuck, man?
Well, yeah, because the cigarette's gonna smell at the studio, and I don't want to smell
but
that.
not the coke.
Yeah, coke doesn't affect me. Your cigarette smoke will affect me. You doing
Both of
coke,
those
I'm
are
just gonna watch. Yeah, but only one is bad for me, and that's the cigarette smoke. So then I got to deal with it in the studio. You doing coke has no effect on me whatsoever.
You can just sterilize like that part of the.
I wouldn't even.
table. Yeah,
I'd
you
be like,
wouldn't
I had to
even?
do coke right in that spot. I tell guests that when they come on. Sorry, guests, depending on if they were okay with that. I'd be like, I've had guests do coke right there.
I would just.
Wait, are
bail.
you serious?
Like if no,
If you
that
did coke, I
hasn't
would let you do
happened.
coke on the podcast.
But if you did that,
I'm not your
like,
mom. What am I gonna do?
I'd bail.
Why do I feel like
Like,
you're about to
sigh.
bust out coke right now and be like, ah,
Do you want to do some heroin?
If you
I'm
were
okay.
busting out drugs right now, I'd be bailing so. I'd be pissed. I'd be like, where the fuck did you put this?
You'd be like,
Number
all right,
one,
now I'm
how'd you
out.
hide
My
this shit
prison
from
pocket.
me? And then number three, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm just gatekeepers to me fall in line with my view on censorship, because I don't trust anybody to make that call. I don't trust anybody to be a gatekeeper, Because what if you gatekeep? If we went back in time, gatekeepers wouldn't let The Last of Us be made. There are a ton of great movies that would have been blocked by gatekeepers, and the only reason we have them is because the market decentralized and the
Right,
people
but
had a
there's
little
also
more
been
power.
a lot of terrible movies
Yeah,
made
but
because the lack of
you
gatekeeping.
get that. Like you get great stuff and you get shitty stuff. But is it better than having just mediocre crap that's picked out by a gatekeeper?
Or you may or may not have something good occasionally pop up.
I'll take the bad with the good rather than just have someone spoon feed me what they want.
That's fair. You have more opportunity to have something better come about.
Yeah, that's not to say there's not going to be shit.
Oh, no,
Because
there's gonna
there's
be
a lot of
shit
shit in a free market.
Holy
I mean, how many people you could say this podcast is shit, but I get to do it because fuck the gatekeepers.
This podcast is pretty good.
Oh, it's mortifying. My friend's kid. I don't know how. For some reason, I think it might have been on like TikTok or Facebook Reels or something. But a video that I was in on this fucking podcast, not a full video, but this little tiny clip popped up, and she was like, "Hey, Dad, this is Angel," and I'm like, and he texted me, and I'm like, "Oh my fucking god, oh, it's happened."
Maybe he
You've
should have.
become famous.
No, that's not fake.
No.
That's like mortifying moments of like,
It
oh
was
shit.
that parent's responsibility to gatekeep their child from watching a mediocre game.
me speaking on a fucking podcast, like probably a
I'm
little
probably
buzz.
your worst guest, man, honestly.
Oof.
But that's kind of the
But yeah,
beauty of
free
it
speech.
is that reached that person.
It's mortifying.
That
I
doesn't
hate-
mean
I-
it
I
should
am-
have.
Oh my god.
I don't talk about the podcast outside of the podcast to people because it
That's
gets
fair.
so uncomfortable.
How come?
It's just a weird sensation.
I just tell everyone not to watch it. Like if they Google me, they'll find it. Like
When I started out, I told people not to
I don't
watch it for 5 years. That's what I said. So check back in 5 years, and it'll be worth
I know that's how
watching.
you reassured me. You were like, "Don't worry, like
No
no one's
one's
gonna
gonna
watch
watch
this, or
this,
at
and
least 5
Lord
years."
and
And I was like,
behold,
"Okay."
I'm
I'm like, I'm
indoctrinating the
so ready.
kids. I've breached that new level. where
Dude,
now I
yeah.
get kid
Now you're
views.
reaching like 11-year-olds.
God, I've
That's-
made it in life.
You made it.
That was my target demographic.
They know exactly what we're talking about, obviously, on all these levels, and they totally should be hearing about potential like hallucinogen use in getting permafried.
How to pick who you're gonna eat if the world
If the
goes to
world ends.
shit.
How to cook your family member when the world ends.
The proper seasoning techniques.
Johnny seasoning salt.
I was just gonna say that, like, you can't go wrong with Johnny's. Like, it can't hurt.
Okay,
I don't know.
guys. Well,
All
we can wrap this. We can go hit the head. Do you guys want to plug your stuff where people can find you? Anything
No,
of value?
no,
Sometimes
I
do you
avoid
ever
that
plug? Yeah, I feel like you
no,
always
No, I always say like tip your bartender, don't be a shit human being, etc.
wise words to end on.
Yeah.
That's pretty
yeah.
solid. Michael, any moment of profound knowledge?
Yeah, read Flowers for Algernon. It's a fantastic book.
All right.
Okay.
That's no, it's not a bad book.
Okay.
All
I
right.
don't know what that book is, but I will definitely check it out after this podcast.
It's not bad.
High school assigned reading.
Yeah, not my high school.
I
I just
know,
went to
not our
different
high
No,
schools
I
than you
didn't. I
guys
didn't.
are
I
doing.
I didn't
have
read
to
that
do
book
that.
until like well into my like mid 20s, man. So it's some schools had it, some didn't. But in general, I guess just probably read more,
Ours did not have that. on
conversate
there.
more. Hell, have conversations. Read. Have
Have
conversations about
conversations.
what you read. Talk. Ask your neighbor how they're doing.
Tip your bartender.
Tip your bartender.
Yeah, don't forget to do that. And your waiter. Just tip your service workers.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And we're out. Thanks, guys. This was a
Yeah.
lot of fun.